Well, good morning, everyone, and good morning, council. Good morning, staff. Good morning, our guests in our gallery, and good morning to the ones that will be watching us from Zoom. We do have a published agenda for Wednesday, March 5th, and it was published on our website. So at this point, we will stand and sing our national anthem. Does everybody practice this morning before you? All right, so going back to our published agenda. So we have, are there any additions or deletions for this morning's agenda from councillors or staff? All right, I need a mover and a seconder to support the rest. Okay, Deputy Mayor Nielsen, Councillor Allwood. The council approve the agenda as circulated. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, since we have an approved agenda, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest with regards to members today? All right, if one does rise at a certain time, you can declare then. So moving on to item 5 on our agenda, we have open forum, and that allows people to register, just whether here in person or on online, to register to speak to any item on the agenda, and they have up to 3 minutes to speak. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody wishing to speak?
Yes, through you, Mayor McQueen. We have Talissa Haskins here, who's wanting to speak on item 17.3, the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes.
Okay, so welcome.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Perfect. Okay. Good morning, Mayor McQueen and council members. My name is Talissa Haskins, and I reside at 714-348 Baseline Road. I'm here to address agenda item number 17.3, the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes from the February 11th meeting, specifically concerning the minor variance proposal for application A17-2024. 3 minutes is insufficient to fully cover the concerns and rebut the claims made by the applicant and their planner. Therefore, I prepared and submitted a detailed letter that outlines our position comprehensively. Mr. Rapke, the applicant's representative, delivered a compelling presentation in favor of the applicant's request. That was his job. Some critical information was intentionally omitted, and committee members were guided to focus only on specific points while disregarding others. Throughout his presentation, Mr. Rapke consistently referenced RUR zoning as a benchmark for this property. This property is zoned A2, and its size exceeds the threshold for it to be classified as RUR. His reasoning suggested that if the property were smaller, it will qualify for RUR, so you should apply those standards for the purpose of this minor variance request. This approach asks you to overlook 1/3 of the property. If applicants wish to be evaluated under RUR guidelines, they must initiate a zoning bylaw amendment process, not a minor variance. In 2021, when this same property was before council for consideration, applicants sought a 5-meter setback on both sides. Mr. Rapke, at that time a member of the town planning department, viewed this request as a major variance. Now, in his role as applicant representative, he has shifted his stance, advocating that a 6-meter setback on each side is minor. Mr. Rapke has asserted that numerical values are irrelevant when considering what is minor. This claim is not accurate. With a width of 20 meters, the ask to provide an approximate 12-meter setback, 6 on each side, constitutes more than a 50% reduction in total property width. Furthermore, A2 zoning stipulates a frontage of 200 meters, except for existing lots of record, when all other conditions can be satisfied. Thus, only if the property meets proper width, the frontage should not pose an issue. Mr. Rapke misled committee members into thinking that frontage is inconsequential in this case. This is not true. For the frontage to be disregarded, a variance must be granted to fulfill zoning requirements. To summarize, Mr. Rapke suggested that committee members ignore 1/3 of the property size, overlook the frontage requirements, and dismiss the essential numerical calculations regarding the property width to setback ratio in order to classify this request as minor in nature. For these reasons, along with many others outlined in my letter, including the fact that the minutes are inaccurate, I urge council not to accept the minutes as information, but rather to make a motion to appeal the decision. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for that. We'll be dealing with those comments when we get to that part of the agenda. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, or is there any other speakers who wish to speak?
Through you, Mayor McQueen, nobody further has registered.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to section 6 of our agenda. This is for delegations, and our first delegation is Richard Frisby, a request for interest relief on new assessment. So Richard, come on up to the podium, and you have 10 minutes to speak as a registered delegation. And we did have some correspondence that was provided to us.
Yes, do you have a copy of that? Good. All right, well, Mayor, Council, thank you for this opportunity. The situation as it developed, as I mentioned before, in 2019, there was an oil spill on my property, and the leak went into the basement of the house, which went into the aquifer, my well, and so on and so forth. And because of that, the Ministry of the Environment and the insurance people made a recommendation that the house should be demolished, which it was, and we should evacuate immediately, which we did. So over the course of the end of 2019, 2021, and 22, we were not on the site. We had rented a place in Collingwood and lived there. So over that course of time, the remediation of the property was pretty intense. There was over 10 or 15 wells drilled because they were trying to determine not only how it affected my well, but if there was a possibility that it was traveling outside. And that's a concern because I live on the Niagara Escarpment, which is karst, which we all know is porous. So I don't have to go into that. So really, over that period of time, I continued to pay my taxes as if I was living there, and I hadn't. So then in October 24th, 2024, I got an assessment of approximately $9,000 of taxes because of the new house that was built. And talk about a shock, that was a shock. So there's two things here. One is the taxes that I paid over the course of those 3 years, I feel should be applied as a credit or a rebate against the taxes that are currently owed. And also, after I submitted this form, which is dated January the 6th, I received a notice of past due taxes from you people, and there's $315 in interest. I like to also ask if there is interest relief until the balance of this $9,848 is paid. So, are there any questions?
Okay, well, thank you, Richard, for that. And so just a question for clarity, and I'm gonna look at the treasurer. So this happened in 2020,
Well, 2019, November, middle of November.
just before 2020, okay. And so the house, it was determined that you couldn't live in the house. Was there, I think, was there a demolition permit issued?
Yes, there was one for the end of April 2020, when
Okay.
the house was demolished.
And then did that reset your taxes? So you weren't paying like for a house that?
No, I was continuing, nothing was reset. I continued getting tax bill as per my original build, which was my farmhouse. So
Okay.
over the course of those 3 years, I continued to pay taxes as if I had a farmhouse and was living there, but I wasn't.
So my question is, my understanding, and maybe I'll go to the treasurer, is if a demolition permit is issued, then that's supposed to be then reassessed, no different than taking a building permit, it gets reassessed. So I don't know, Madam Treasurer, do you have anything? Can't get that information. Okay. So you never got any, you never got anything in the mail that had a notice of reassessment or anything that after the demolition permit was paid?
No, I never got an assessment notice until October 2024
Of a new build?
of the new bill.
Have you ever followed up with Impact to question them why that wasn't
Well, I
reassessed?
have, but it seems to be, defer, delay. That seems to be a moving target. You can't get an answer. So I appealed to Keegan Manning, and he went through the issue, and then he referred me to Hannah, and she went through it, and she said she could do nothing about it. And she said their next step is come to council. So here I am.
Okay, I'll leave my questions there. Other questions, comments from councilors? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Member Queen. The main question you asked was mine, the kind of what's been your correspondence with MPAC. So the municipality doesn't have the ability to assess your property. It's MPAC, right? So
Okay.
when your demolition took place and during the time, the timeline you've presented is there was about probably 18-24 months where there was no house on the property. You weren't living there because of the remediation that was happening. During that time, the property should have been reassessed. My understanding is kind of the assessment, the bill you're receiving now, that you're looking for some help with the interest and kind of and such. What your request is due because once the new house was built, your house got reassessed and property was reassessed. So I think the unfortunate situation is the challenge is more with MPAC and the way the property was assessed, because it's not Greyhound's ability to change or affect that assessment.
I do agree with you there, but I'm more concerned about the taxes that I paid, and there was no house and I wasn't living there. And I feel that should be either a rebate or a credit against the new assessment taxes, which I will continue, until I get an answer. And also the interest, like the interest is, like I say, it's $315, and I imagine that's for 3 months. So, I'm chasing a dead horse.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Mayor McQueen. So the taxes you would have paid during that time would have been against the tax bill, but you're saying the tax bill the assessment wasn't changed. So given this one, I do have questions as to what ability we have to support the applicant's discussions with MPAC. So I would move a motion to request a staff report on Grey Highlands' ability to assist with MPAC's ability to understand the timelines that existed. I could understand an individual having challenges with MPAC and like the role assessment and how it's calculated and stuff like that. And I don't know what our ability is and our relationship with MPAC in that sense. So I'll move a motion to request a staff to receive the delegation for information, but to request a staff report on councils or sorry, the municipality's ability to work with the individual and MPAC to adjust that assessment. I think once the assessment for the 2 years that there was no house there can be attributed, there would be a rebate on the tax roll, similar. I'm hoping similar to, you know, if the way it works when you're going for like a farm credit back. So that's where I'd probably request is more information from staff on how we can actually assist you, Mr. Frisby.
Well,
Do I have a seconder for that, Councillor Dubik? Okay, go ahead, Richard.
well, the only discussions I've had with AMPAC is that we took occupancy in July of 2022. And they said they could only go back 2 years, and that's why there's 2 years of taxes at the new assessment value. The old assessment value used to be $138,000. The new assessment value is $69,000. So you can see there's a $200,000 assessment increase, which is a battle. There's no question about that. But what I'm looking at now is that I pay taxes for a period of 3 years and I didn't have a house. You know, I wasn't living there. My property was under siege. You know, they spent over $1 million drilling into the, you know, the ground to find out where this oil spill, which is predominantly diesel fuel, that's heating oil. And really, they got to the point that we're out of money. End of story. So to this day, my well is still contaminated. So I'm dealing with that also. And also my business as an organic farmer was affected because I had to buy potable water to meet their criteria. So it's an ongoing, like I say, it's an ongoing dog's breakfast here. And it's wearing me down.
We understand your circumstances and nobody ever would want that to happen to themselves for sure. I know there was a circumstance in Eugenie where a similar situation happened. But going back to the motion that's on the floor, I know that it's interesting, I find that they reassess the new building permit and reassess that, but they missed the part about the demolition permit that should have been reassessed as well. And I think that's something that I think the deputy mayor is there's a flaw there somewhere along the way. And I know the county pays a certain premium for the role of impact, which represents the 9 municipalities in the county of Grey. So there is some accountability there as well. So I'm not sure who the representative for our area is. There is a representative for our area, and generally, you know, even when you got that new assessment for your new home, you do have the ability to appeal that up to a certain date as well.
Yeah.
But that's your, you know, your part on that. But I think get back to impact and say who dropped the ball there, because obviously there's been an issue there that they caught the new building permit, but they didn't catch the demolition. And, I think there is something that needs to be.
Okay, but what about the real numbers of I paid taxes and I wasn't living there. So
that's what we're gonna ask for a report to come back and give us more information, and that report will come back to council and we'll have more information to make a decision.
Now, what about the interest relief at this point in time?
So Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. I understand that the frustration for yourself, Mr. Frisby, is that you're not getting a specific answer today. We're not here to give you a specific answer today. We're here to get a staff report from to understand what abilities we have and how we can assist you or not. The big question for myself is, like we've been discussing, the impact situation, your assessment. The assessment changed from the new build. Again, that's out of Grey Highlands' control, but is there a way that we can help you when it comes to the past assessment? If there is, then, you know, Greyhounds can try to move forward for that, but we don't, as council, have that information until we get the staff report. So no hard answers for you today, but once we get a staff report, there might be some hard answers for you.
And the question I would ask, what kind of timeline are we looking at?
So that you're probably looking at not next council meeting, but at least 2 council meetings, like not the, what have we had, or probably the first meeting in April would be the minimum time that a report could come. Because the reports have to be in by Friday for the next meeting, so that wouldn't happen in that time. So I would think the minimum would be the 1st of April.
All right.
Is that a fair assessment, Madam Clerk? Minimum.
Through you, Mayor McQueen, I can't speak for how busy our finance department is, but I would assume that it would be at least the first meeting in
Yeah,
April.
because we couldn't meet the next meeting for sure. So, and I think there's also the opportunity for us as a council to have our impact representative come to council. They have came in the past. So, but that's something that will have to come back to the report and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
Any other comments, questions with regards to the motion that's on the floor? Madam Clerk, can you reread that motion just so everybody understands?
Thank you, through you, Mayor McQueen. That council received the delegation from Richard Frisby for information, and that council directs staff to report back on the request and the municipality's ability to assist the applicant with MPAC.
So is that enough to sort of wind impact in a little bit too?
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. I think the getting the staff report on how we can assist with MPAC will help us understand context of who our representative is, how we're able to have a conversation with them. And specifically, that's, I think, the best avenue to support Mr. Frisby today. So I'm comfortable with the wording of the motion. And I think staff are able to understand the conversation we're having here, and that, you know, other questions have been asked, be part of that second point.
You wouldn't consider adding the part where the representative for this area be invited to a future council meeting? Or would that be something that could come from the report?
I think that's something that would more come from the report, right? So if the staff report does show an avenue where the municipality can become as an advocate for the delegate to MPAC, then that's kind of the avenue I'm hoping there's an opportunity there. But during that process, once the report's back, we can be looking for.
Just thinking
MPAC.
schedule might take long.
Yeah, fair enough. And I understand that sometimes the process is slow, but we're following that good old process.
I mean, notice the motion could also address that as well. Okay. Any further comments with regards to the motion that's on the floor? It's been read. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? That's carried unanimous. So stay tuned.
All right. Thank you.
And sorry for your circumstance. Okay, so then moving on to item 6.2 on our agenda, Jeffrey C. Barrett, Wildland Conservation Education Corporation, and this is a request for a community safety zone, 40K zone, speed radar signage on the third line. So, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and for your time. So my name is Jeff Barrett. I'm the executive director of Wilde School. We have schools in the Yukon and in Grey Highlands over on 3 line in Epping. So Wilde School has become quite an interesting developing private school in the area. We're attracting families from far and wide. Toronto. We've had families moving up down from as far north as North Bay, from Sudbury to this area. So it's become quite a magnet to our area. It's a full-time private school for K to grade 8, and we're announcing a high school program as well. We have 75 students full-time right now, and we've got 20 part-time students as well. We have 10% of our students are on bursaries. We're supporting some shining lights in the area with a goal of getting to 40%. Of our student body being supported. So it's a very interesting school. It's a different approach to education. It's a little bit more of a pragmatic approach to education. Its big focus is on outdoors, on nature, on experiential learning, big focus on emotional intelligence, which we think is going to be really serve our children in the future. And we have a lot of fun. We love it. And it's a really beautiful place. We've got some incredible teachers employing 6 full-time teachers, 4 part-time teachers, bus driver, and admin staff, a couple directors. So it's we're employing quite a few people in the area. Recently, we purchased the property from Elephant Thoughts in June of this year. We're still working closely with Elephant Thoughts. They're our charity partner. And we're doing a whole bunch of different programs in agriculture and youth employment. And developing this as a Kimbercote as a hub for conservation and education. So I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with Kimbercote, but it's been a long established institution since 1974. History goes back to a pastor that would bring different groups up from different religious groups together and talk about ideas and conservation and education. It's had outdoor education programs. It's had other private school, and it's got a daycare there as well, 100 Acre Woods Forest Daycare, which has about, I think we're at 60 children as well. So quite a few families are operating out of this area, and certainly a beautiful place and real testament to the Grey Highlands, and I think an embodiment of a lot of the values that we all share here and trying to instill in our children as they grow off of this dangerous and beautiful place that we call home. We are hitting a bit of a juxtapose with some of our immediate neighbors, and we're working through with them. We've got some amazing people in the valley close by us, and we're working quite closely with them. I know a number of them have been here in the past speaking, and frankly, we share their concerns. One of the big ones is speed on the road. You know, we educate our parents as best we can about slowing down. There's lots of people using the roads, not just humans. There's turtles crossing, there's deer, there's lots of wildlife, there's no hurry. Really is no hurry here. And so we share their concerns. It would be a really bad day if one of our children were hurt on the way to school. The bus is coming in and out of there as well. You know, it's not a good spot to be speeding down. So one of our neighbors has approached us with an idea of developing the area as to a special safety zone. And I think that, you know, you guys reduced it to 50. I think that was a great step. And what we're asking for is if we could reduce it even further to 40. Whether that will stop things, who knows? But at least it's, you know, it's kind of putting more attention and you know, creating the flashing lights that you'd see with any typical school in a area. We would love it. I know this is a bit more of an expense, but also just to put in one of those speed signs, maybe just temporarily, just to kind of push the message across. But we're really going to be rolling out a big campaign with signage leaving the school, messaging, and potentially even other signs such as, you know, turtle crossing signs, that Epping Bridge. There's a lot of wildlife coming and going through there. Really special place in our area. I'd also, and this isn't on the on my petition, but I'd also like to just bring attention to that corner as well of the Epping Bridge as you turn on to 22C. There's that parking lot area there that is really becoming a showcase of people, tourists coming and going. Free Spirit operates out of there. We come down there, put our canoes in the water as well. And we'd love it if we could, you know, it's not looking for any commitment, but put it on your radar about maybe doing some beautification, even just putting some more gravel down there might help that area. But there was some work along the road. What we don't want to see is anything that's widening the road or looking at anything that's going to increase speeds. I think that keeping that area a little bit small where people have to slow down to let one another go is a natural calming way of keeping things speeds down. So I know I was talking to some of the municipal workers and they were talking about widening that section of forest just off the bridge. I think that would be a mistake from certainly from an ecological perspective, and I think from a speed perspective. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say. Any questions?
So do you have any problem like with people parking there of getting through there at certain times?
Yes, thank you. That is actually another thing that one of our neighbors wanted to bring attention to is sometimes we have events and people have been parking on the road and we've been telling people not to park along the roads. So really, frankly, it's our, if anything, it's come from our people. They've asked for no parking signs along that area as well. I don't know if that seems like a bit of an overkill, but it certainly, we would support that if that's of interest to the community at large. It's very, very rare that we have an event big enough that we spill onto the road, and it's usually just mismanagement of parking. But yeah, it's a great venue for community gatherings. So if we're looking for places down the road of meetings, it's a great place to get together.
I know a few years back, we had a landowner along there that was proposing a partnership of creating a small area for a parking lot. And I'll have to think about his name, but just up from the bridge. It was, I think, presented maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I'm trying to think of his name. It'll come to me. I gotta run the tapes, but anyway, I'll go to questions here.
But that would be actually really helpful about having a parking lot. I think Free Spirit would absolutely love that. And there's a lot of tourism coming into that spot. I think that's probably the main access point for the Beaver River right now. And on a Saturday morning, it is a place to be.
It's a desirable location. Councillor Dubé.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming in this morning. You know, when we have schools, designating them as community safety zones, I think makes, you know, obviously makes a lot of sense. So just a question in terms of just trying to understand the traffic pattern there for kid pickup and drop off. Does that happen like along the road, or is there like a driveway that goes into the school? Wondering sort of how does that, trying to understand sort of that traffic.
Thank you for that. So Wilde School has a bus. So most of the traffic is coming from the preschool. And so they have we have a driveway, parking lot, roundabout. So it's all inside the property. So the traffic is really just speeds along the road. It's not in terms of congestion or anything to do with drop off and pickup.
Okay, any further? No. Councillor Lohead and then Councillor Deputy Mayor.
Sure, thank you. So first of all, thanks for the delegation. My son's at 100 Acre Wood 3 days a week. He's there today. So I'm very familiar with that pick up and drop off. And I agree with you about not widening the road. I think that's often an impulse of you know, transportation folks and engineers is you know, to make something safer, you make it wider. But I agree with you that that's likely to make it more dangerous, as that's likely to increase speed. And one of the things that makes it, you know, it's uncomfortable to drive along that road right now, and traffic is both ways, especially in the winter. But that's sort of a benefit because people drive for that reason slowly, right? I'm wondering about community safety zone versus a school zone. I mean, they're not one and the same, right? They're similar but different. Both can be a 40-kilometer-an-hour zone. So I'm wondering if this becomes a school zone rather than or if it's already a school zone. We put up a school crossing sign, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yep.
It's a delegation. It's questions for clarification or ask for a staff report.
So you want to zero on your question of clarity then?
Well, I mean, no, not really. I guess I was just kind of thinking out loud. We can ask for a staff report. I guess I was wondering if this would be a school zone or a community safety zone, but I suppose that could come in a staff report.
Okay. And those are points that could come out of that report. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. I kind of wanted to follow up on Councillor Dubik's question for you, just regarding the traffic patterns. I mean, I do really understand your concern about the traffic around the kids and such. Obviously, pick up and drop off, you have your families coming to the property and the properties around. During the day, outside of your pick up and drop off times, so just like any other school, are you seeing the same concerns with the traffic in the area, or is traffic minimal around other than the pick up and drop off time?
Thank you for that. Yeah, it definitely reduces. There's peak times. The drop off is between sort of 8:30 and 9:15, and then 3:30 and 4:15, and that's when the peak volume of traffic. But talking to our neighbors, they've been noticing speeds throughout. It's often that area sort of used as a bit of a shortcut. I don't know where it's a shortcut to, but but sometimes people, you know, I mean, people they drive very quickly on certain roads, right?
But they want to get from A to B,
Right.
shortest time.
Right.
Deputy Mayor.
Just a follow-up question. Can you speak again to, you kind of mentioned it, but your communication with the users of the properties of the Wilde School and the academy that's there? Can you speak to your communication with parents and the drivers? Like, from my perspective, listening to your delegation, it sounds like the concern is more the traffic patterns that exist with the families that are using the property. And so I'm just wondering if you can help with me understanding our ability to lower speed limit to 40 if the families that are traveling there and the high traffic time are not obeying the 50-kilometer. Just what's your messaging to those families?
Right. So we send out regular emails throughout, and it's consistent in that, saying, please slow down. I've been targeting individuals as well that I've seen or reported. We're gonna put a sign up on the exit as well, saying, emphasizing that, because we can only control the Wilde school, and so the preschool is separate. We've been communicating to them to also relay that messaging on. And I agree, certainly it is, I would say predominantly, or is people coming to that school, but you've got you do have public. And I think it's more of just, it's in the, you see that community safety piece, you're going to slow down. And I'd like to, I've been trying to get the OPP to come and, periodically, I haven't had any luck. So we might just hire an off-duty officer to come and I don't know the legalities if they can actually ticket at that point, but at least just their presence in a school zone, I think would do a lot.
So I need a motion then from somebody, Councillor Dubik.
Thank you. So motion to receive for information and a staff report to understand, what it would take to create a community safety zone we do have speed signs, those digital speed signs. So wondering, if we can also add that into the report in terms of, adding that maybe to the rotation, because we do have digital speed signs that rotate throughout the municipality right now, because we could do like a count.
Maybe part of that's options, like
In
what
terms of
are the options? Right.
Yeah, so also including, the no parking, so as in terms of options. And what I also would like to just maybe add, that gravel, the parking lot so that you mentioned at 19 and 3.
Line.
Yeah, maybe as part of that report, so we can just understand, could we add gravel or what that option could be.
And there was a presentation with regards, I think it was Mr. McNichol that had an opportunity for cost sharing with the municipality as well. So that'll be somewhere in a delegation back. Yeah. He owns the land just up past that area. So I'm thinking he came about 2 years ago and he proposed a cost sharing or an idea of parking.
Oh.
Maybe that could be included in the report as well. Okay, I think probably from the discussion, the clarity, staff will probably get a good understanding of the options to the request that's being made. All right, so Councillor Dubik, you're moving it. Did I get a seconder for that? Councillor Lowhead? Any further comments on that? I will say with OPP, Bruce Gray, OPP haven't had their first board meeting yet. And that's a change of Grey Highlands Police Services Board. So there may be options that once that gets up and rolling, that you can present to that as well and maybe follow through on that. Okay, so is there any other discussions of the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. All right, how are we doing here for timing? I'll keep going. All right, moving on then, thank you. So that's it for today's delegations. So then moving on our agenda then to item 7, the minutes of February 26, 2025. Would somebody care to move those minutes? Councillor Allwood, second by Councillor Dubik. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Moving on to items for consideration. Item 8, building and economic and community development. And I'll pass the chair over to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor McQueen. Just one item on my portion of the agenda today. Award of RFP F18 2024-04 King Edward Park Master Plan Consulting Services. So the council receives staff report ECD 2503 for information. And that council authorize award in accordance with the RFP Evaluation Committee's recommendation to GSP Group, Inc. for the amount of $29,889, excluding HST. Moved by Councillor Allwood, seconded by Councillor Dubik. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Mayor McQueen, chair is yours. Councillor Allen? I like that.
Sorry, thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. Moving down, item 9, environmental services, no report. 10, there, no report for finance, no report for fire, police and safety, no report for transportation and public spaces. Moving on to item 13, corporate administration, pickleball club of Grey Highlands, sponsorship and advertising package. I could read the motion that council receives a sponsor. Sorry?
Could
Yeah.
I make a comment?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm going to make an amendment to this motion, so I wondered if, are we allowed to make amendments before the main motion is even read? It's- Yeah, right.
And I've
Okay.
recognized you. I've recognized you, so go ahead.
I just thought in saving a bit of time, having to read it again after. So, second paragraph, the council approved pickleball club of Grey Highlands in principle to negotiate, and I would like to add on behalf of the municipality of Grey Highlands. So I think I do have another question about something in the report, but I would like to add that into the motion.
So, so you're changing the whole structure of the motion. You said to negotiate, but you didn't add any more.
Yeah, I added.
Because negotiate is in
On
there.
behalf of the municipality of Grey Highlands, advertising and sponsorship sales, and it goes on.
Okay, so
On behalf of the municipality.
on behalf of the municipality of Grey Highlands, that's your change. Okay. Well, you wish to carry, you should read the whole motion. No, I mean for the public record.
I've got one, the proclamation one that is perhaps longer than yours. So, Mr. Mayor, I think you should read this.
Okay. All right, so then as your change, on behalf of the municipality of Grey Highlands, in principle to negotiate advertising and sponsorship sales as outlined in the proposed sponsorship and advertising package with conditions that the pickleball club of Grey Highlands will publicly advertise the opportunity in a local newspaper and social media and communicate with the potential purchasers that final naming rights decisions are to be approved by the council, and that council directs staff to bring forward a naming bylaw in accordance to the renaming policy once the fundraising initiatives comes to a close, and that council directs staff to prepare a grant submission for the community sport and recreational fund Stream 2 for the construction of a pickleball courts as proposed by the Pickleball Club of Grey Highlands and their delegation to council on May 15th, 2024. Are you moving that? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dubik. Discussion. Everybody understand the slight little change on behalf of the municipality? So there's Councillor Allen.
Thank you. So the other question, or the question I have, on page 2, under operational considerations, the second sentence, it says, in our commitment to, and this is the municipality speaking, in our commitment to openness, we should require an advertisement in a local newspaper and on social media at the expense of the Pickleball Club of Grey Highlands. So I guess the question is, why is it at the expense of Grey Highlands Pickleball? And could that local newspaper ad be in the what's happening section of the paper that the municipality takes out every other week?
So basically it would be a collage of what's happening, but not necessarily a cost. We
Or-
use that space.
Or do they want a specific block ad that draws attention to it?
Any comments from staff? Anybody? I know in the report, it does say that the municipality of Grey Highlands has committed to the 50,000 for that out of budget, but you're asking some with regards to advertising. Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you. So that was in response to council's previous resolution that said that no money will be spent on this until further approval. So absolutely, we can advertise on our own social media and platforms that don't cost any additional money. But if we were to put a separate ad in, then it would have to be the pickleball club that would have to pay for that, because we don't have the authority to spend anything additional outside of our budget.
But if it's populated and what's happening, is that sort of something that we do? We buy that space anyway, but would that be included? Would you need an amendment to that, or is that something that could be included in what's happening in the paper? Because we buy that, we populate that one spot, or does that need a separate motion if that's to be there?
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you. So we include most things that are going on in the municipality in the what's happening. So we don't need any further
Clarification.
but this was just over and above what the normal.
Right. If it was a separate
Businesses,
half-page
yes.
ad that talked about it, then it would be an extra cost. It'd have to be. Any follow-up, Councillor Allen?
No, that's fine. And this, you know, it was just a question that somebody on the club executive asked, why are they having to pay for it? It's obviously not a deal breaker. It's going to be $75 or $100. It's not going to as I say, be a deal breaker, but it was just, we just wanted to know why it was at our expense, and the CAO has told us. So that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so sometimes fundraising has to be sometimes phone calls too. And sometimes that comes from individuals, is sometimes making those calls to individuals for support. Okay, so the motion is there, Deputy Mayor.
Forgive me, Mayor McQueen, I'm just trying to remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. There wasn't the motion that passed that suggested to getting, like, I moved the motion to get the asset management report on this before moving forward. We're moving forward with accepting the donations and setting all that. Is that not coming before council's full support? Because the asset management, my motion at the time was to see that before and understanding the full long-term cost of it before we actually move forward with this.
So do you talk, because you added the whole part about the replacement cost.
Yes,
down
like,
the road for,
yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, here we're, by setting up the advertisement, by approving all of this, isn't that moving ahead of the motion that was presented that said we don't do anything until the report came?
I thought I read that in this preamble here, did we not? You want to pull it out, Councillor Allen?
Says that before council considers incurring capital costs for the project and funding mechanisms, the projected full life cycle cost of the court, including operating maintenance and renewal costs, be provided to council through a report. So it's before incurring capital costs.
So that could
we can
happen.
do the fundraising.
So that can come, but the fundraising can still happen. Right? Would that be a fair assessment? Before the municipality commits, that has to come back, right? Deputy Mayor.
So, but to that point, right? So logically, we collected Maxwell Park, right? We collected some money, then it was uncommitted. If we collect the money and then the asset management comes back, trying to get full transparency on it, it comes back and then council doesn't support the idea of the pickleball, but we've already fundraised all the money. So to me, it's still kind of going a little bit chicken and egg, and I agree, like, there's nothing wrong with the fundraising aspect, and I appreciate the package that the pickleball club has put together, and their plans and objectives are ambitious, which I appreciate and enjoy, but I don't know, I was trying to.
So I understood
We're still
what
looking
you were
at-
trying to do, was to have a better understanding of the replacement cost, not
Yes.
necessarily say you're not going to support it, but
Well,
just understanding
the
that.
question is, no, it was, sorry, Mayor McBain, my apologies. My comment with wanting the asset management report was for council to fully understand the decision it was making. We sit here with, said this time and time again, so many assets in Parks and Rec that we aren't supporting fully or are having challenges supporting. And here we are requested to add another asset to that base. And we are doing and making this decision without fully understanding what we're moving to. Moving this forward, prior to getting the information to fully understand what we're going for, is again, my same concerns. We aren't taking in the whole context of the decision making. We're saying the community wants to have a pickleball court. Community's willing to raise 75% of that. Fantastic. Okay, Grey Highlands said, yes, we're willing to support the 50,000, but we're not taking into consideration the long-term effects of it. We are seeing now ramifications of that not taking place before. That's my concern and my point.
So two options is you move a motion to defer this resolution till you get that report, or the group takes, the risk of fundraising until that report comes back. Because we're sort of, I think they want to get moving on fundraising, Councillor Allen. I'll come back to you.
Or they continue to fundraise and we ask for the staff report to come in the near future. These funds are not going to be raised in a week or two, or a month or two.
So back to you, Deputy Mayor, I have a query.
Sorry, Mayor McQueen, just taking a thought to think this through. I agree that we're not going to be like fundraising. We could find a couple of big sponsors right away. We're also saying we're going to apply for that particular community sports and recreation fund stream 2 for the construction of this. Are there other valid things that the municipality needs to support other recreation projects that we could have applied for? So it feels like we're having a hard time taking care of the parks and recreation equipment that we have. And here we're saying, let's add something new. And when I'm looking at this, I'm having a hard time continually making that decision. So deferring it, I don't think will matter in the grand scheme of things. I think that we should be more fully considering and understanding what we're doing before we move ahead with new projects.
And they may have an aggressive fundraising campaign ready just to take off. I know when it came to the Ram Rodeo, I generated 20,000 in less than a week, so it can happen. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Through you, I agree with Councillor Allen. The council supported this project in principle. The concerns that the deputy mayor has expressed, we've asked for information on that. We'll get that report well in advance of their fundraising goals. I don't think we want to be holding up that effort. I think everybody realizes that whether it's the basketball court at the King Edward Park or wherever, it costs money to maintain these things. But we've expressed we've expressed our support for this project, and I don't think holding it up at this point. I don't think moving ahead with this fundraising effort would impact us. We still have to make the decision that we're going to incur capital costs, and we want to know what the upkeep and maintenance of that asset might be should it move forward. But let's not hold up their fundraising.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Dube.
Thank you. So I do agree. I think these things can sort of happen in tandem, like don't hold things up at this point in time. And I think, the deputy mayor is bringing up a very valid concern and point about, taking it's a bit of a strategic look of the whole portfolio of our recreation in terms of ensuring that we can maintain what we have and add on and continue to maintain any new add-ons. The demands and the requests from our community are going to continuously change and grow, as we grow and as different trends come through. Pickleball, is an exploding kind of sport, and I think this needs to be call it a takeaway or a broader conversation where we do need to take a look at our recreational portfolio and ensure that we are funding it appropriately, and that we're not letting things deteriorate. So thank you for that.
Well, I think probably when we take on the responsibility of supporting it, we take on the responsibility. Right. So other comments, motions on the floor. It's been moved and second. Everybody understand the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we will look for that report coming in the near future, though, Deputy Mayor, so. All right, so then moving down under corporate services, again, is item 13.2. Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act, 2005, AODA Annual Progress Report. Would somebody care to put that on the floor? I can read it, that HR 2501, Accessibility for Ontarian with Disability Act, 2005, AODA Progress Report be received for information. You're moving it, Deputy Mayor? Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Wickens? Discussion. Deputy Mayor.
Not much of a question. I was just gonna say, I remember receiving past reports from HR and they were disappointed we didn't have questions for them, but they made such good reports. And I don't have any questions, but we did have a discussion at the county council regarding accessibility in the minutes that are kind of shared through this report as well. So it is great to see that Greyhounds continues to hold the standard and trying to make sure that we are as open to everyone to be part of our team, as part of our community. So it's just a positive report.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, questions? I know this, it seemed like a long time ago that we were, everybody was trying to be fully accessible by 2025, and that seemed like a long time ago. We're 2025. And I think in the province, we're not unique of not meeting those obligations, but I'll note in that minutes, it does speak to the Stoddard Hall Accessibility Project, Grey Highlands. And I know, Deputy Mayor, you're on that committee. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. I may be putting you on the spot, but it does speak to that. I know Jackie's here with us as well. And I know that is something that has been spoken to for a while. So I don't know if you have any comment there or not.
Sure, Mayor McQueen. So actually following this conversation and report coming to Grey County, I did have a conversation with Manager Botello. He has been in great conversations with the Priceville Improvement Committee around their desire to see some improvements to the hall. If we recall, the last time the report came forward, the engineering drawings that the community group had done were a little bit just the drawings themselves were outdated, but when the engineer last reviewed them versus, any changes to building codes and such. So the community has had it reapproved by an engineer. Staff are in conversations with the community group around how to try to implement that. I'm sure Grey Highlands Council will see a report in the not crazy distant future regarding that. And we'll probably, speaking to budget and how we're taking care of all our halls, probably see something coming along soon with a price tag regarding how to do accessibility on this particular hall.
Right. Well, thank you. And I know at our last year on our bus tour, we stopped at the Stoddard Hall and had a good tour. Councillor Owit? Oh, yeah, Councillor Owit. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you. I mean, it's important to remember that, the accessibility issue is on new builds or changes made to. So, Grey Highlands is, as noted in the report, we're making our sidewalks accessible when we're making changes to them. The Alice Street project was mentioned, the Kimberley project, sidewalk project. So even things like our porta potties being accessible. So, we're making some inroads into this, but the intent of the act was not to bring every building up to that standard. It's as those changes are made, and any new builds are built to these standards.
Well, the complex here, Markdale, 2010, we had the elevator. I'm trying to think when the Kimberley Hall, was it 2 years ago or no, more than that, when we added it was around COVID time when we added the elevator in the Kimberley Hall for accessibility. And so we are, working down that. Jackie, do you have anything to add? I don't know, you're here and I'm not asking you. I just wondered if you had anything to add to it. Oh, maybe she does. Just hang on.
Through you, Mayor McQueen,
Yeah.
I just want to say that I honestly think we're so proud of how our staff automatically consider accessibility and diverse needs when they're making changes, repairs, planning projects, and we're working towards, upgrading and becoming way more accessible. So
It's quite
we're
an
really
awareness.
proud of our staff. It's automatic.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you. A decade or so ago, they set 2025 as the year to have all buildings accessible. Obviously, nobody made that. And I understand, and this is a question for our CAO or our HR manager, or is that our coordinator? Okay. I understand that they've moved that date to 2040. Is that
Oh.
correct? Yes, I'm seeing a nod of the head. Okay.
So I get a nod there, yeah. That's probably because of the whole asset management part and all that stuff, but I think as Councillor Allett said, is you have a new bill, you try to work in accessibility into that part. I know, maybe this is a little bit on the side, I know a few years ago, we did a bit of an experiment where we were either blindfolded or we were whatever throughout the building and try to imagine how somebody could come to our office and how they could get through the door, or how they could get, you know, help that way as well. And I know with regards to, I think our website is more accessible and all that kind of stuff too, and all that stuff. So, you know, little baby steps, it's all part of, and you never know when you're in that circumstance, right? You never know. Okay, so again, that's been moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Wickens. I read it out. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? I just carry it. Thanks, Jackie. All right. Going to 13.3, a year in review, 2024 staffing complement presentation from the CEO Addendum, published, I guess that's March 3rd at 12:45 p.m. So there's a motion here that council receives the CAO 2503, a year in review and staffing complement for information. I presume you're going to speak to this, Madam CEO. So moving by Councillor, you're moving that? Councillor Allen, do I have a seconder? Councillor Dubik. So Madam CEO, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you. I'm not going to go through the whole presentation.
No.
I have done this before. I think it's important to get the numbers in front of council and in to the public. But you'll see going through the individual slides by department. I also attached the 2022 review as well for comparison. So, you know, generally there's more work being done, a lot more work being done by each department. You know, we continue to struggle with vacancies, but the work's still getting done. And I commend our staff for stepping up and helping out in those situations. I think what's really staggering is when we look at the modes of electronic communication, and you can see that emails received, so that's only emails coming in, have more than doubled since 2022, and 2022 was a staggering number. So we're looking at 549,000 emails a year. So it's great for communication, but obviously it takes time to respond to those. And also, in addition to that, our external phone calls have increased, as our walk-ins have increased as well. I think the last time I did this in 2022 was perhaps just, you know, the COVID influence, and a lot of people weren't coming in person, but we're seeing residents and business owners come back to us in person, which is, we love to see people in person as well. So some really good information. As far as the staffing report on FTEs, quite a bit of research has been done. There's no obviously easy benchmark to present these numbers to council, but staff have gone through, looked at, you know, full-time equivalents per 1,000 residents. Generally, that benchmark is used for larger cities because it's a lot easier to benchmark one city against another city. It's more difficult to do that for rural because we have different lines of business, we have different numbers of arenas and kilometers of roads and all that stuff. But we did take a look as well at the percentage per expenditure for the lower tiers in Grey County. Again, we fall bang in that middle point where we would expect to be with the 4 municipalities above us and 4 below us. So, you know, while there's no perfect method to say how many staff members any one municipality may have, what I can tell you is I do think, I mean, I could use another 5 staff members. I know that's not going to go over well. But we're getting the work done. There's considerable work being done. And I believe we're adequately staffed at this point. And, you know, when staff do come forward at budget time, there's a lot of review gone through to justify an additional FTE, and that is presented to council. And I know those around this table are aware of that. So I'm hoping this will satisfy everybody's questions, but I'm happy to answer if you have more.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Madam CEO. Questions from council members? Deputy Mayor.
Just a comment for myself. I think part of what I appreciated from the report is kind of showing and showcasing the legislation. A lot of it is very hard to describe municipal business to residents, right? It's not as simple as operating a retail operation or a different style of business, but frequently we have residents that say municipalities should be run like businesses. Legislation that has affected us, the one comment in here is that, you know, if you look at the Planning Act, so all of our planning staff, so it's not just Grey Highlands, it's every planning staff across Grey County and Grey County's level, responded to 3 different changes to the Planning Act within 18 months. And those changes in the effort that staff need to do to analyze what the province was telling us to change, as well as the trickle-down effect of that. It's not just the planning department that was having changes. It would have been the building department understanding certain aspects of it. It would have been ecological understanding certain aspects. It's the conservation authorities understanding that. It's working with the conservation authorities to understand. So the staff time to understand implications. It's not as simple as, oh, we got a new mandate. Great, I can implement that in 5 minutes. It's what are they actually saying? How do we implement that? Who do we need to contact? Are we sure that they're implementing it the way we're implementing it? Are they understanding the legislation in the same way we're understanding it? And so it's been a challenge. And when you look at the different departments, and frequently I talk to residents, and the finance department is one where there's a lot of pushback on how do you need 6 people in finance to deal with this? It's simple. You're just doing payroll and you're collecting taxes and you're paying bills. And I think it's important just to kind of help understand that the way the legislation works, every penny that the municipality gets from the province requires a report. It's not just a tax receipt saying, hey, we spent the money on a new park here. It's we spent the money on that park there. That park was this, the materials were this, it met all of this legislation, and this is how come we spent the money. It's not as simple as any other kind of business model around. And I think it's important that we try to help residents understand that. I think when we see, myself included, like running and getting on council, the understanding of what the municipality is from the outside versus when you're here and you're in reading all the wonderful staff reports that we get and trying to understand this legislation and trying to understand what staff are going through. It really is kind of eye-opening. And so I wanted to kind of highlight that particular aspect because a lot of residents may not understand that the majority of the decisions we have to make around this table, the majority of the decisions that staff have to make and the pressures we're under are placed here because of legislation in the province. And perhaps 30 years ago, there was an easier, more streamlined way of doing things, but they didn't deal with the same legislation that we're dealing with today, and we're kind of stuck. And as much as everybody loves government bureaucracy, it does exist. And unfortunately, as part of that bureaucracy as municipalities, we have to follow that, and we can't skirt it and go around and say, oh, it's great, we're not going to do this. So I just really wanted to highlight that aspect. And I do appreciate the CAO bringing this together. There's been a lot of questions from residents around understanding the staffing picture and the workload picture of our municipality. And I do hope that this does a great job to answer those questions of the community.
Well, thank you for that, Deputy Mayor, and it certainly gives a bit more in depth of which each department, and sometimes that's what, you know, you look at the big picture, but sometimes you got to break it down into small bites and then understand the small bites of the bigger picture. And, you know, that sort of, you know, sort of does there. And to your part, Deputy Mayor, every time there's a provincial election, then sometimes there's new legislation that comes out and then it changes the whole business that we are. There's more reporting, more of this, more of that. You know, and obviously it takes staff and time, and it's like, it all goes back to accountability and, you know, and what you say and stuff like that. But I think you look in here like 546,000 emails, 549,000 emails. Like, I know my emails stopped working on Saturday and they start working last night. And I'm still trying to get caught up on my emails, right? It's just, and then there's so many contact avenues now that we have that, you know, there's so many, you know, one time it was the old landline phone call that everybody got. And, you know, and if there was a number of people in the household, you had to take turns on that one, right, Madam CEO?
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. So I think it's important to point out as well, just to go to Deputy Mayor, his analogy about private business versus public business. Generally in manufacturing, you're manufacturing widgets, and you know, you take your inventory, you have your profit and loss, you do your financial statements. You know, in the municipality, and I included the slide that I included on the 2022 review, but the word bubble that talks about over 40 different lines of business. So our staff, you know, when you're talking about the legislation, you know, cemeteries have their own act, right? So our staff have to know if those regs change, what the implications are of the change for the reporting to the government. So when you're looking at 40 lines of business, it's a lot to, you know, control and to ensure that you're following legislation. So it's not as easy as just saying, well, you know, we make X amount of widgets. We're actually doing a lot of different lines of services and business. So I think it's important to point that out. And that's why, you know, we have directors that are not just an expert in roads, but also understand construction of bridges and also understand minimum maintenance standards and, you know, so on and so forth. So each of the directors also doesn't have one stream, one line. They deal with many different service streams.
Comments, other comments from Councillor? Councillor Dubé?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just a big thank you to the CEO and to staff for pulling this together. I think it's important to get this information out. And it's always great to have a benchmark from a few years past to be able to see changes and you know, in terms of, you know, what has changed, and also the increase in just even in terms of emails and phone calls and visits. You know, that's a big sort of a jump as well that we've seen. And you know, because we do get so many questions about, you know, FTE and our, you know, our size of our, you know, of our staff, because that's obviously a big portion of the budget. You know, it's not just legislation. You know, obviously legislation is a very big piece of being able to support the work that needs to get done. And then the other piece is the level of service, right? So the fact that, you know, we have a very large geography and the roads that we need to maintain, right? That's a big chunk of the expense and the staff that's needed to support that. The fact that, you know, we do have a large number of arenas, halls, parks, and other recreational sort of facilities, you know, if that's, you know, the desire to continue to support that, then we also need the staff to support it as well. So, you know, so the staff level is really driven by, you know, legislation and level of service. And you know, as we've seen, you know, by the two documents, one of the memo document, you know, we're falling sort of in the middle of the pack, you know, within our sort of surrounding municipalities, which is a good, I think, sort of a good sort of test there to see, you know, where we're kind of falling. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wiggins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Good morning, everybody. I was just doing a little bit of quick math on the phone calls. So 128,000 phone calls at a minute per call. That's probably very low. So that's, you know, but at a minute per call, that's 2,100 hours of phone calls. And if you break that down, that's 270 8-hour days, you know, not including follow-ups. And that's a lot of phone calls. And like the emails are up. I know it was in the 400,000s last year. So it's up at least 50,000.
Well, if it was a-
It's, yeah, there's a lot more than meets the eye goes on here, that's for sure. Thank you.
Well, if it was a farmer calling, you might talk for the first minute about the weather.
Well.
Then you get into the second minute, right? So, yes. I will say from my years being around this table, being, 28 years of municipal government, one of the big things I've seen a big change is insurance. And due diligence and the responsibility and the 1% rule that if we are found at fault of 1% and nobody else can pay, we pay. So we're, so much from our staffing and even ourselves, we have to be on our game on the due diligence of everything. Even us as councillors, we have to, from the Clean Water Act and Walkerton and all that around water and wastewater and, all that stuff and the regulations that change there and, from what, 2000 and 2001, and the changes there, there's the responsibility is, and rightfully so from public health and public safety and all those things. But, it's just, we do those things and our insurance, is getting up to close to $900,000 and just, over a number of years, but insurance is, one part of that mindset that we all have to keep in our mind of, it's on your mind and all those things and, and as humans, things happen, right? And weather happens and all those kind of things, right? So, just, I'm sure from the roads department, I'm sure they were a little or not tested a little bit this past year because we got an extraordinary amount of snow this year that everybody's had to deal with and with the downtowns and our buildings and facilities and roofs and all that stuff. And I know, Madam CEO, you sent out a report there last week with regards to our roofs and, there has been some, on that part as well. So there's so much responsibility that we have to be on the game all the time. And it's just, our business is getting busier and busier all the time, but it is something that, we have to maintain and I think this report sort of, falls up on a lot of those small bites. Councilor, go ahead.
Keep it clean. Thank you for the detailed report, CEO Govin. There's one sort of aspect of the report that I feel is maybe missing and perhaps you can tell us why. And it's so used as a benchmark, it's staff per thousand of population. But I feel like the better benchmark would be, dollars spent of staffing versus dollars brought in for levy or for taxation, right? So as a proportion of the total of taxation, I'm wondering if you can just maybe tell us why that number isn't a number that's here in the report.
Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you. So we looked at various different aspects of how we could measure. When you're talking about salaries versus tax, our tax rates are low, one of the lowest in Ontario. So when we look at that data, it's skewed because we don't have an average tax rate like other municipalities. So it wasn't a good benchmark to use. We felt overall expenditures would be a better benchmark. So percentage of staffing costs per expenditures. We did run into some challenges with that because some municipalities use consultants for certain streams of business and some don't. Some have their own police force, some don't. So we tried to extract some of the anomaly out of the data to try and get, something that was somewhat maybe apples to pears as opposed to apples to oranges. And we were satisfied that that supported the hypothesis of what was presented in the report on being staff FTEs per 1,000. So there was a lot of research that was done on the outside that wasn't included in the report to support what was being said in the report. And I'm satisfied that we are average. We're middle of the road when it comes to Grey County. In some aspects, we're closer to West Grey with some things, but I think Meaford is also a very good comparator to Grey Highlands geographically. Their size and proximity to us in Grey County. And they've had a full, extensive operational organizational review done that they paid for, which was a lot of money. So just reading the report kind of gives you information. and when we're talking about similar size municipalities, similar revenue streams, so on and so forth, it's a good benchmark. So, you know, based on the research that was done, and there was about 50 hours of research put into the report, and pulling the report together. You know, I'm satisfied. You know, if council has other questions or wants further information, I'm happy to respond to that. But I really would like to move on and get the work done.
Any follow-up, Councilor White?
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, and thank you for that answer. And I've been thinking about this, and I understand, you know, it's got to be frustrating in isolation as a CAO to do all of this work yourself and run up against, you know, walls and black boxes of other municipalities when you're looking for that data. And I'm surprised that AMO or Roma or FCM haven't taken sort of an overview look of this. It seems to be the sort of work that they would do of the however many municipalities there are, 400 plus in Ontario. You know, however many thousands there are in Canada, and provide that kind of data. So you'd have, you know, an ultimate sample size and then get a thorough understanding of staffing levels relative to, you know, population, geographic size, tax base. Especially considering this is a question that councils are asked so often. We're obviously asked so frequently as councillors. I imagine that's the same for every council across Canada. So I suppose those of us who sit on those types of boards, maybe bring that as a recommendation, because it's certainly information I would like to see.
Is that a follow through to the deputy mayor?
Point taken.
Okay. Right on. So there's a lot of good information here, Madam CEO, and I know that, you know, we have people watching, we have people in our gallery that see this, you know, but from our general population, they have no clue. I mean, no clue in the sense that, you know, where can they see this, or if they're not following through, they would miss this information. And I just wondered, like a few years back, we used to have a booklet and it talked about all the things we do, but there's a cost of sending it out. I don't know if this could be crunched up into a tax notice. I don't know. Is there some way of getting us, because there's a lot of good information here. I think it should be shared because it, like I said, it breaks it down in small bites. It gives you a bit of a snapshot of what's happening here. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you. So we are starting a bit of a campaign on social media and in our What's Happening. We have a data kind of snapshot that's been established by our communications staff member. We're going to start putting that out on social media so that the information as tidbits gets out there to the public, so public understand how much work each department is doing, what is our staffing complement, you know, what are our challenges like winter. So we're doing a bit of a campaign on education. We think it's key, and I think a lot of the questions that come out in the public are because they don't understand. And, you know, that's our job to get that information out to the public so they do understand. So we already have the data snapshot ready to go. I asked staff to wait until after the council meeting today, so we could start putting that out. But we're going to do some highlights on, you know, specific departments, specific staff members and what they do and what's entailed in their roles and how challenging it is at times, but how rewarding it is at times too. And part of that is to aid in recruitment. We want to recruit younger people. We see that there's not a lot of education in the school system about local government and about what it is we do. And this is a great career. We've had people who've started in one department, outside workers, who've gone back to school, learned something new, or done some job shadowing and actually transferred to a totally different area of the organization because they've seen something that inspires them. So it is a great opportunity for young people, and we do hire summer students and try and you know, teach them and job shadowing. We have one currently at the fire department right now who's job shadowing and learning everything about the fire department. And we hope to inspire some young people to go through local government education and make recruitment challenges a lot easier when we've got inspired young people who want to work in municipal government.
Okay, that sounds great. I just think on the social media side, not everybody in our community is on social media in the sense that follow. That's why I wondered on what's happening. Could little bits of it be added to what's happening? So that goes in the paper. A lot of people get that paper, so they see that. So at least it's being shared on that. And I know going back to you, Council O'Head, not any or every municipality is different. There's probably not one exactly like we have 4 arenas, 5 community centers. I know you talk about that quite regularly and the challenges around that as well, and liability is part, right? So, but anyway, all right. Any last comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. I'm going to suggest we take a break. We can usually stop at 11, but I maybe have to go to the washroom. Sometimes that happens. Sorry, you asked. So I'm gonna say we come back at, we take a 10-minute break then, if you want to keep going. So we'll come back at 25 to 12, okay? Sometimes nature does Okay, well, welcome back, everyone, and we'll continue on with our council meeting for today. And at this point, we're on section 14 of the agenda, and this is regards to CLS and planning. And at this point, I'll pass the chair over to Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. First item is 14.1. And the last agenda, we had a proclamation and we spent 20 minutes and then we voted it down. So before I read this motion, I would ask for a mover and a seconder if that is what council wishes. Deputy Mayor?
So for efficiency purposes, my hope was to move a motion to receive information, the request, and then that would be it. So I'll
Okay.
move that we receive the request for information.
Okay, the seconder for that. Councillor Wickens, discussion on that? Okay, if not, all those in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving on.
didn't say opposed.
Opposed? Oh, sorry. Okay, one opposed. All right, 14.2 is a bylaw regarding the joint waste and diversion site terms of reference. The council approved bylaw 2025-015 being a bylaw to adopt terms of reference for the joint waste and diversion site committee and to repeal bylaw 2024-114. This is to do with the terms of reference that we approved, and now we want to go back and have some consultation. So it's being moved by Councillor Dubik, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nielsen. Any discussion on that? Mayor McQueen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can you just point out the little issue that was the issue?
I don't even know if Clerk Van Alstyne, can you tell us what the difference was or in the two terms of reference?
Through you, Chair Allen, at the last meeting, I suggested that if council wanted, we could prepare a report that compared the two terms of references. And that was not the direction that was provided. So no, I can't at this moment tell you what the differences are.
It was subtle.
Well, that's what.
I think it was to do with missing meetings. Yeah.
The one other clarification that was made is that it was in the original terms of reference, it spoke to all waste and diversion sites within both municipalities. And it was clarified that it was just the one site that this committee was to deal with.
Go ahead, Councillor Dubik.
And thank you. And the one point was also around the minimum number of meetings. There was just some clarity about sort of how it's being positioned.
Mayor McQueen.
Well, the reason I asked, because we had passed something that we were made aware that wasn't right, and so we don't know what we don't know. So my point is, that's why I was just asking for some clarity. So I appreciate some of those points that, and I think it was about a little bit around process and about getting to the committee first before it got here. And so I guess my last question is it's gone there? It's gone to the committee?
Not yet.
So this is, we'll go to the committee. Okay, so the resolution here is then,
This is just to revert back to the previous terms of reference.
okay, so this is the old ones.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll have a discussion at the joint waste and
Right, so
diversion
it's sort of-
site committee.
It's sort of appealing the new ones, bring it back to the old ones. It goes to the committee and then they'll come back. Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, Mayor McQueen.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Allen. So there's a notice of motion here, so I will pass the chairmanship over to the deputy mayor for my notice of motion.
Absolutely, Mayor McQueen. As there's only one motion for which notice has been given, Mayor McQueen, I'll let you speak to and move your motion.
Okay, I will read my notice of motion that whereas the Ontario Small Urban Municipalities Conference being held in the town of Collingwood, April 30th to May 2nd, 2025, and therefore it be resolved that council waive section 2.1 of the conference. Sorry. Therefore, it be resolved that council waive section 2.1 of the council conference policy A09C03, permitting council members to attend in addition to conferences that cost for registration and mileage to be covered by the council reserves. And so just to add a little bit of context, this year OSUM is coming to the town of Collingwood, and OSUM is Ontario Small Urbans Municipality Conference. It's a small conference, and they talk about, well, because Markdale is a small urban area. It's more focused on the smaller urban areas, but no different than other circumstances that have had conferences at Blue Mountain and stuff like that. It's sometimes, council has approved because it's right next door. The only cost would be, as like I said in the motion, would be registration and your mileage there and back, which I think the registration was around $600. I think it's on that. It's a 2.5 day conference. I think there's a number of speakers. I sort of quickly looked at it last night. Generally, with our policy, councilors probably focused on Roma and AMO, because then those are sort of 6 months apart. But I'm bringing this motion for council for consideration for the simple fact is it is next door. It could almost be under training in a sense, I guess, but because it is outside. But anyway, it's outside the policy, so I move this notice to this.
Looking for a seconder. Councillor Allen, seconding. Councillor Allen, you have a question or comment?
Yes, so it is $600, and then there would be mileage and meals.
They usually include if it's the server for the day.
Mayor McQueen.
Sorry.
And just to let council know, I have signed up for this as one of my 2, so it won't be 7 times the 600. Just thank you.
Thank you very much for their comments. Mayor McQueen, did you want to respond to Councillor Allen?
Generally, when you sign up for $600 for the daytime meals would be covered generally, right? So there shouldn't be really meals other than just your mileage, and you get there and you go through the lunch. I know there's some study tours earlier on, but I mean that would be an optional as well. But the bigger part is the information that you're being presented with and those workshops and all that stuff. So.
Thank you for that, Mayor McQueen. And to your point, I mean, the biggest benefit with having such a local conference is obviously there's no need for any kind of accommodations for us. And so there's some significant savings there. Councillor Lohan, I did see your hand raised.
Thank you, Chair Nielsen. And I think this is a great idea. So thank you, Mayor McQueen. I personally find these types of conferences, very useful, very educational. And I think that this one will be particularly useful and educational. I know it's anybody seeing this might say, well, this is for small urban municipalities, but we are quickly becoming a small urban municipality here in the municipality of Grey Highlands. And in order to sort of understand, the best practices for somewhere like Markdale or Flesherton, as we grow and become that small urban municipality, I think it's very important that we look forward to other municipalities and seeing what they're doing and the mistakes that they've learned from, which they will certainly be discussed there. So I think this will be very valuable for all of our councillors. And I thank you again for bringing this forward.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments regarding the mayor's motion? Seeing none, I would just make a comment that similar to Councillor Allen, my intention was to use this as my second conference. So the increase in cost may not be as significant as could otherwise be. Seeing no other further questions or comments, call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Mayor McQueen, chair is yours.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to add, I know we were having a comment at the county, and I know about transportation, and I know Lynn Dolan, who is part of OSUM, they use Uber for their transportation. So I would say if you have an opportunity to talk to about that, it may be for interest, because they've been doing Uber for a few years now. As that they subsidize it a little bit, and they don't have the and the reason I say that is we know at the county we're losing at the end of March, right? So. All right, so there's only one notice of motion. It does say notice of motions, but I guess I don't ask because basically there's a two meeting process, right, Madam Clerk? Right. Okay, so moving on then, we have the consent agenda, and there are 6 items there. Have any of those consent items wish to be pulled for separate discussion? Councillor Owett.
I'd like to pull 17.3.
Okay. Okay, any others? Councillor Allen.
17.5, please.
Okay. And any others? Okay, if not, then I need a motion that the items on consent agenda be approved with the exception of 17.3 and 17.5 for alternate consideration. So can I have a mover there for that? Councillor Deputy Mayor, Councillor Wickens. Discussion on 1, 2, 4, and 6. Any discussion on those? Councillor Owen.
I just wanted to comment on the for you, Member Queen, I just wanted to comment on 17.4, the Saugeen Conservation Authority meeting minutes. In the body of that of those minutes, it mentions that they're responsible for maintenance and enhancement of the watershed. And I know that we had some discussion during our stormwater with I think Andrew was his name, but I've forgotten his last name, but saying that the conservation authorities weren't doing that. So this seems to indicate that you know, the maintenance and upkeep and enhancement of the watershed is still falls under their conservation
So
authority.
can you just zero us into what part of the minutes so everybody's on the right spot?
Yeah, I could. Might take a second.
Maybe
here.
I'll go to Councillor Allen, who's a vice chair. I don't know if you have any comments just before we
Yeah,
find it,
it was on page
our item.
just a second here. Should have highlighted it.
Just when you're finding it, I know I get emails of just more recently of us from Grace Auble and Saugeen. I think even Nottawasaga with the snow melt, there was the depth of snow, I think came from John Bitteroff, right? Snow melt, how much water's in the snow. So, you know, I look at that as a bit of an overview of communicating with the municipalities of that circumstance, or if there's a significant weather event, they'll send out, like there's going to be a 4-inch rain coming and, oh, somebody just popped up there. Oh.
He's just joining the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it was one of the paragraphs.
So your concern is, was it a concern or was it just more of a comment or statement or just or an acknowledgement?
Just a comment that you know, the conservation authorities are continuing to maintain and enhance the watershed. So, you know, that relates to the discussion we had during the stormwater where one of the representatives said that they weren't no longer doing that, and that we needed some other provincial legislation or provincial program to
Well, the reporting on endangered species or natural heritage was taken away and it was put to the county.
right. So it's on page 5 of 11 there, and it's in the 1, 2, 3rd paragraph on that page. The core of what we do hasn't changed. Our mission remains to protect and enhance the watershed.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, the taxpayers of Grey Highlands, or should they pay for that service, right?
Yes.
So. Deputy Mayor, or sorry, Deputy Chair of the Saugeen Valley Concert. Do you have any comments to that? Sorry.
Well, I don't, they protect and enhance, but it's not, you know, they comment on proposals, and if it meets the criteria, then they approve. I think that comment that was made is that they maybe feel that the conservation authorities aren't doing enough of a job. They should be more involved, but
Well, there's the mandatory and non-mandatory, which was a change or a government relationship change. Right, and they had to
Yeah.
determine that, right? Sure.
and they can only enforce what the province says is is acceptable. If it's if the proposal is acceptable, then they have to approve. Oh, no,
It just popped up.
Joining the meeting.
Hmm?
Just joining the meeting.
Oh, okay.
So, and while we're on that, Saugeen Conservation, as you said, I was elected as vice chair. I was second vice chair last year, and I've now moved up to vice chair. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
Double your pay, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Other comments to items of consent? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor McQueen. Just a comment towards 17.6 Museum Advisory Board meeting minutes. Part of that meeting, we did discuss the terms of reference again and kind of the updated terms of reference as we did go through with that here at the council table. Part of the terms of reference for the museum is that it is suggested that museum board members do volunteer. I did talk to my wife about that and the challenge of trying to add that to my list, but my 13-year-old daughter said she would love to volunteer for that, except we can't have a 13-year-old volunteer. And so my child told me to volunteer at the museum. So I did express that to the Museum Advisory Board. My daughter has had multiple opportunities to go in, and as Peter has said to her, I think it was his fault. He sparked the idea in my child that would be great at explaining the articles and the items to the residents because she's been learning so much from Peter and so much enjoy at being at the museum. So my hope is to be able to start volunteering there once the spring hits and to help support the museum as being kind of an active spot on the weekends during the summer months.
Well, co-op is always something, and I've always stressed that even for the municipality co-op, and whether we can do that or not, I don't know, but co-op is a great exposure to a lot of different things, and we can do that. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Unfortunately, the co-op doesn't run during the summer because the kids are out of
Well, no,
school.
no.
But because of the age, they would need an adult with them. What we're trying to do is get adults in and encourage them to bring their children to help and learn what it is to be a volunteer.
But I was also thinking of general, as a few reports back about getting exposure to municipal thing, if there's co-op opportunities for high school kids specifically, but thanks for those comments. Any further comments on the consent? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Okay, and Councillor Elwood, you pulled 17.3. We had open forum with an individual speaking today. So, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you. Yes, I pulled this item specifically to speak to 5.1 on there, the A17.2024, which is a baseline road property. I have some concerns about Committee of Adjustments decision on that item. They basically align with what our open forum presenter said today. It seems that they're considering, or it was overlooked, that the less than 1 hectare requirement for agricultural property to be considered rural residential, even though this lot is bigger than that, it's 1.5. That, to my mind, that would require some sort of bylaw zoning amendment. This file came before the previous term of council as a bylaw zoning amendment and was turned down. I don't agree that even the minimums, the side yard setbacks are minor variances. I think what they asked for is not minor in nature. I wanted to put it back on the floor for discussion, and maybe we'll have some discussion, and I might be prepared to make a motion.
So just as a background, the Committee of Adjustment is a quasi judicial committee of council, arm's length of council. And it's like a hearing that deals, I don't know, were you ever on the Committee of Adjustment?
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. For you, I served on the Committee of
Yeah.
Adjustment on my first term of council,
Okay.
so I'm aware of the
So
role
again,
of the committee.
as items that are presented to the Committee of Adjustment, it's like a hearing, it's dealt with, the decision's made, it's adjourned. That's the end of. It has the ability to come back to council, it'll be appealed. And the minutes are here today for that opportunity. So do you wish to move a motion, or you wish to get some comments from other people?
I'd like to hear if there's any concerns or comments from the council, but I'd be prepared to make a motion at some point.
Okay. Other comments? Councillor Allen.
Yes, so I have the same concerns. I voted against this at Committee of Adjustment. I've always thought that if you need they're calling it a minor variance, but a variance on both sides of a property, then it isn't minor. This variance applies to both sides and is over 50%. I think it's more like about 60% reduction on each side. And I just don't feel that that's compatible with the neighboring properties. So, yeah, I have some big concerns with this.
So go back to you, if you went through the meeting and the reports that were presented, because the whole report process is like a hearing, like all that information is provided through that process.
I didn't actually attend the meeting, but I read the minutes and the reports and, you know, obviously Planner Rocky, it's not Planner Rocky, but he's a consultant on this. I guess he's a
planner.
He's a planner, so that's probably correct. You know, presented his argument very much in favor of this, but you know, again, I think that the fact that considering it as a rural residential, which would even allow consideration of those type of side yard setbacks, was a mistake. It's doesn't meet that criteria. It's not below a hectare in size. Again, just to be clear, I voted against this when it was before council.
As a zoning bylaw.
Yeah, as a zoning bylaw. And I think this was sort of some sort of workaround that doesn't sit well with me. And I'm prepared to make a motion to appeal the decision.
Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. In the anticipation of what council is going to do and before any motions are on the floor, because of the technical side of Committee of Adjustment, I did invite our municipal solicitor to the council meeting. So he is in attendance if council has questions from a legal standpoint.
Okay, that's good to know. I saw him pop up there because there is a process and it is quasi-judicial. And I will say in the sense of the planning reports, all planning reports were favorable on that sense, right? So I have Councillor Wickens, I think that was next, and then Deputy Mayor, and then back here.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. So I've had conversations with people on both sides of this. I guess there are some reasons for letting it happen, and I think there's a lot of reasons for not. You know, the frontage is supposed to be for a rural lot, it's supposed to be 100 meters. It's only 20. That's not minor. And if it's going to be an agricultural lot, the minimum I hear this morning is 200 meters. So that's not minor. And just the fact if the neighbors ever get warring, you know, you take a lick manure spreader and go upside one of the house and go down the other side of the house with it and plaster it. You know, it's not, the side yard setbacks are not, it's not good. I think I'm going to be in favor of the Councillor Hallwood's suggestion.
There was a couple of conditions that were brought forward to deal with the agricultural side as well. Deputy Mayor, and then I have back to Councillor.
I was just actually with the fact that through you, Mayor McQueen, with the fact that our solicitor, Mr. Velblom, is here, I'm wondering if we could hear from him, because so my question for him would be just if he can help explain council's ability to reflect, question, consider, appeal. How does that work? Because it is the Committee of Adjustment that did it. So I would like to hear from our legal representative on that process.
Okay, so Ed, are you there available?
My video won't turn on. Oh, here we go. There we go.
Not a few minutes ago, I saw your smiley face. So the question from Deputy Mayor is process, a little bit of a high level of council has the ability to appeal the decision of the Committee of Adjustment. So can you just sort of explain process and all that kind of stuff that I think the Deputy Mayor was asking for?
Certainly, through your worship, you know, Section 4512 of the Planning Act allows the applicant, the minister, a specified person, or a public body to appeal within 20 days of the making of the decision. So council is entitled, or does have statutory standing to appeal a Committee of Adjustment decision. And I've participated in those, acted for a few municipalities that have done that. Now the one question, and I was of the understanding that the 20-day appeal period had passed. So if that's the case, then there's no right of appeal.
Councillor Allen has a quick comment to that.
Okay, so the notice of decision,
was on the
It
11th.
says minor variance, notice of decision. The last date for filing a notice of appeal of a decision of the Committee of Adjustment shall be no later than 20 days after the giving of notice of decision. And this is the notice of decision, and it's dated February 18th, 2025.
Okay, so there is, so the 20-day appeal period has not passed. Okay.
So just on clarity, I was always understanding that a minor variance is 20 days, a consent is 20 days from the day notice is given. And you're saying
Yeah.
minor variance,
Right on the website.
is that, well, I know from training, from what I got at the committee, I always was told that minor variances are 20 days from the day of the decision.
It says, yeah, I'm just looking at, I'm just looking at the act. Subsection 10 says the secretary treasurer shall not later than 10 days from the making of the decision send one copy of the decision. And then it says 20 days within the making of the decision. But I believe, it would be, I think it's when the notice actually goes out. I'd have to check in on that, but because that would really prejudice a person's right to appeal if you sent it out on the 10th day and then there was only 10 more days. That just doesn't seem to me. So I would check on it, but I would think that if the notice went out on the 18th, it's 20 days from the notice.
And the reason I raise it as the chair of that committee is when I do the, when I finalize that, I said 20 days from the day of the decision for a minor variance, 20 days from the day of a consent when it's mailed out. And that's the way I've been saying it. If I've been saying it wrong, that's the way I'm asking that clarity, because that's the way I was told, that if it's a minor variance, it's 20 days from the day of the decision. If it's a consent, it's 20 days from the day it is mailed out. Anyway, that's something that can be followed through on that stuff. So
yeah, definitely, I can follow up.
Further on process then, in the sense of appealing. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McQueen, if I may, Ed. So my question is around what criteria would a municipality need or use to appeal? Because this is a quasi-judicial, because it's a separate body, if council has a difference of opinion from the body, even based on the merits of that body's ability to see it. So if, to Councillor Allwood's comment about whether or not this was a minor variance or not, does that qualify as a reason for appeal? And what is do you maybe have some definitions as to what we utilize as an appeal rights for the municipality?
Certainly, no, that's a great question. Basically, when it comes to minor variances, the reasons for the appeal are very narrow. You basically argue that one or more of the 4 tests was not satisfied. So then it would go to the OLT, and the critical point, Deputy Mayor, would be that, the municipality would need to produce some evidence. So considering that the municipality's in-house planner recommended approval, we wouldn't be able to rely on his evidence, and then, we would have to go out and seek a second opinion from another land use planner to really advance, the appeal before the OLT. As you're well aware, the OLT relies heavily on expert evidence. So, just having seen this, they would, the applicant who got the approval would be introducing Mr. Rapke. I doubt that they would probably subpoena Mr. Pasha to come and give evidence. They would just have Mr. Rapke comment on his positive report. So in order to counter that, the municipality would have to have an expert land use planner provide contrary evidence.
Okay. Other questions to Ed? Go ahead, Councillor Dubé.
Thank you. Hello, Ed. Are there any other expenses to consider besides hiring a land use planner to represent?
Well, obviously you have to pay the lawyer to those darn lawyers. And just the appeal fee would have to be paid, and then this would probably be it really should be able to be done in one day, but knowing the OLT, they'd probably schedule it for 2, but I could see this thing wrapping up in one day.
Any further up? Councillor Allen.
Just on that note about expenses, because the province has taken away the right for neighbors to appeal, the neighbors in that, I think we all got that letter. The neighbors are ready to support the municipality financially. And obviously we can, if an appeal is launched and the neighbors don't come forward, the municipality can decide to move forward anyways or drop the appeal. Well, it's not like once we appeal that we're committed right to the end.
Right. Okay, any comments, Ed, on that?
No, anybody can still, once there's an appeal, other people can seek party status. And I would think that if an immediate abutting neighbor sought status, they would still have to kind of overcome a test. My experience lately is that, the tribunal really looks at, if you're not entitled to appeal in the first place, you really have to overcome a big burden to become added as a party. So, at the end of the day, I think the municipality would have to carry the burden of producing the evidence, but there's nothing to say that residents can't donate money. Happened before.
Okay, Councillor or Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you. The minor variance notice of decision states that date of passing was Tuesday, February the 11th, and that the last day of appeal was Monday, March 3rd.
Okay.
Were you reading that from, Madam CEO?
The minor variance notice of decision from Grey Highlands that was issued.
Oh, that was sent out by staff?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Allen.
There are two. I found that one too. But the one I'm looking at is the one that has been signed. And it's the notice of decision. And again, says right on it, and it's not Grey Highlands words, it's out of the act, that it's 20 days after giving notice of giving the notice of decision. So there's discrepancy there in what went out or what's on the website. So obviously that needs to be clarified, but it's also disappointing that if it turns out that it's 20 days from the decision, doesn't give much time to make a decision, especially when it's a public body like council where they have to have a scheduled meeting to discuss it. It could easily be that the decision is made and that we don't have another council meeting for 2.5 weeks, maybe,
Right.
Or it could be 3 weeks. Yeah, so
it's almost like when the committee of adjustment, it needs to get on the next council meeting.
Yeah.
In order to have that. So I think one takeaway, Ed, is you have to clarify or find out on that appeal period on that stuff.
Definitely. Yep.
I just remember when I did the training, I remember it, and that's why I've always said it that way, because of the training that I had at those conferences that talked about that. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. So I took the time to fully listen and digest the Committee of Adjustment meeting. We've received some comments from residents. We've received comments from residents before the Committee of Adjustment meeting. I think for myself, when reviewing this one, I'm trying to understand whether or not I, as a member of the Committee of Adjustment, would have agreed with the 4 tests. And so I think to Solicitor Velblum, who's here with us, and said that, the reason why or why not council would appeal a decision of the Committee of Adjustment is whether or not we would agree with the 4 tests.
That's a fair assessment.
Listening to Mr. Radke's comments and presentation around whether or not this is a minor variance, I found challenges to the way he presented it. I found challenges in his examples given that if this property was smaller, if this property was located here, if this property was this. The zoning bylaw doesn't state if you have a property, you can do this. The zoning bylaw states under this zone, this is what you may or may not do. Specifically, sorry, this is what you may do. It doesn't say what you can't do. It specifically just speaks to what you can do. And so under the A2 zoning for the land, it clearly kind of creates a lot that isn't buildable. To change a lot from being buildable, sorry, from not being buildable to being buildable isn't a minor variance. It's significantly changing what can or cannot happen on that property. However mechanism that happens. To that end, the previous applicant came through for a zoning amendment because to allow for a house to be built would require a zoning change given the nature of the property. When I looked at the evidence that was given and specifically trying to rationalize what should or shouldn't happen if the property was to be developed, I utilized the kind of the same lens through what the Niagara Carbon Commission does. There's a lot of applications that are happening. Currently, Grey Highlands is going through a zoning bylaw amendment, or sorry, zoning bylaw review process in which there could be changes to the zoning bylaw that would allow this property to be developed. The Niagara Carbon Commission is hearing lots of requests for changes to the properties, but the Niagara Carbon Commission is going through the 10-year request process.
Plan.
Plan review. The response from the NEC to these requests are, we apologize, but the rules currently state this can't happen. However, we are doing the plan review and those rules may change. And if they do change favorably, we fully support you trying to apply again. In the circumstance with this property and the rules that exist right now within Grey Highlands, I find challenge to whether or not the minor variance, the minor qualifications are met. So from that perspective, if Solicitor Velblum is saying the rationale for whether or not the municipality would appeal is based upon whether or not we believe the 4 tests were met.
From a council's perspective.
From council's perspective.
So from a committee's assessment, there are 5 people that on that committee. It's a hearing. They hear the evidence from all sides, all the reports, all the comments that came through. And the committee has 3 options. Approve, deny, or defer. And they can also make that reason for deferral is, as you just said, this should be a zoning amendment, not a minor variance, however. But it's a hearing, dealt with the evidence that was presented. And for fairness to the individuals that are on that, they're dealing with the evidence that's presented that day. Right, and that's how it's dealt with, right, Deputy Mayor?
If I just may, Mayor McQueen, my comment wasn't, I'm not challenging what the Committee of Adjustment decision was. I'm saying from myself that if I were sitting there, if I sat there and tried to review the same evidence, what would my understanding or opinion have been? And through that lens is why, as a council member, then I'm having the challenge of how do we is it valid to question the decision from the Committee of Adjustment based upon my interpretation of that 4 tests? And this isn't a simple one. I mean, this file came to council last term and I was fortunate enough to be on council last term. My initial instincts is that we are trying to support housing and properties. When I review the setback that's being done, the request for the setback, specifically that some kind of a home construction could happen on the property. There's concerns with the fact that the neighboring property is an existing agricultural use and utilizes fertilizers and pesticides for that purpose. I see that there have been many instances of challenges from individuals who purchase land and then this disagreement happens between uses. The Committee of Adjustment did make changes to the location of the home and make changes to the location of the well, but the well is going down into the ground and the groundwater is coming from the neighboring land. So moving the well 10 feet to me really didn't, maybe 20 feet, sorry if I'm not wrong my footage, is that really separating the well far enough from the pesticide use? There was a few challenges that, when I reviewed the data. And so then I sit here at council and say, okay, well, what is our role as council? And if our role is to, if we have concerns ourselves, would we have made the same decision? we have to bring it up for discussion and make sure that we're doing our role as council.
Okay. Doopy.
Thank you. So a question to our legal counsel. How would we select a land use planner? Like, do we have one on retainer, or like, how would that selection process go?
Well, I mean, you just, a lot of times municipalities turn to me and say, Velboom, can you go find a planner that, you know, and I really take the approach of, I look for a reputable planner, and then we have them give their second opinion without saying, you know, I don't look for a planner who will give the opinion that we want. I look for a reputable planner who's worked in the area and let them make their assessment, their professional assessment. And if they say they can support the appeal, we, you know, like turn that around to the council and say, yeah, they can support council's appeal. And if they don't, I say, well, look, now we have 3 planners who say it is a minor variance. You know, are we going to go look for a 4th one? That's the way I approach it.
So we'll just add in the sense of if a motion comes forward, then best practice is to indicate what that reasoning for the appeal is.
Yes, I mean, I think it's open to council to look at, and especially considering the timing of these appeals, it's open to council to look at the decision and say, we don't agree with the decision, we're going to appeal it. In order to be successful on that appeal, you're going to need, you know, an expert land use planner to support that, you know, that view.
So it doesn't need to be in the motion today.
I would suggest that if council is, you know, going to pass a resolution directing staff to, you know, launch an appeal, you might want to put it in there and to retain, you know, to seek out a land use planning opinion.
We'll just process, council appeals it, holds that spot, and then comes back with an opinion later.
Yeah, I mean, you can
Or
give
its
direction,
decision.
you can give direction in closed session, right?
Right, okay.
And we are in closed session, correct?
No.
Oh, no, okay.
That's
My
okay,
apologies.
you didn't say anything that incriminated yourself there. You're good. You're good. If you had, I would have stopped you.
See, I don't have my shirt and tie on. I'm just not thinking as clear.
We won't hold that against you. Councillor Allen.
I know this isn't the time to discuss this, but in defense of if the other 4 members even need defense, but in defense of any committee of adjustment member, when we're listening to the report, we've got a planning report from our planner, we've got one from the applicant's planner, we are listening to committee member comments, and then we're going to the public. This meeting went on, I think it was over an hour. Pretty sure maybe closer to an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of information to digest, try to think it through, and think up or questions to ask. And then at the end of the meeting, we're expected to make a decision. And I think, like, when you
There's
think
the option of deferral.
yes, there's the option to defer. But when you think of our planning process, we have a public hearing, we hear all that information, then it goes back to council at a later date so that we have time to think about it. So I think it's a flawed process myself, but as I say, that's a discussion for another day.
So the part of deferral, does it allow it to come back to a future committee of adjustment meeting? But there's only 3 options: support, deny, or defer. It's the 3 options that are presented. Because a lot of times you defer if you don't have enough information. A committee member can say, I'm going to move defer. My position is deferral. And if there's enough that wish to have deferral, then it gets deferred. And it does happen.
In this case, it was too much information.
Well,
Just information overload.
we've had 3-hour meetings on committee of adjustment too, on certain files as well, and the decision was made. So it's not, you know, it's all over the map. Deputy Mayor.
Mayor McQueen, I know I've spoken more than 2 times already, or maybe this is my 3rd time. Wondering if you would allow me to ask a question of our planner, Pasha. I believe I did see him join our meeting. I'm wondering if Planner Pasha can speak to, during the course of discussion for the Committee of Adjustment, the definition of minor adjustment was spoken many times by Mr. Rapke around, you know, almost saying that everything is a minor because there's real no clear definition. I'm wondering if Planner Pasha can speak to his interpretation of minor. Like, how does our planner interpret minor?
It's a holy
Because,
grail idea. because
well, and
it's
this is
all
the concept of what we're discussing. I mean, for myself as, like I said, myself as a council member, my question, when I reviewed everything that was presented, I argue whether it's minor.
Mhm.
And so the way that definition was presented, even at the committee of adjustment level, when listening to the arguments, it was almost like, well, everything's minor and nothing's minor because it's all open to interpretation and it's open to, you know, there's no clear definition. And maybe this is more of a legal question for Mr. Velblum, like, that was the part where I found challenge and flawed to what was the way it was presented and discussed.
And that's why you have 5 members on there to.
Yeah,
to say-
everybody has their own opinion.
Right.
Council works.
So hang on, I'm gonna,
Order, point of order, I really don't know if asking our planner his opinion on what the definition of minor is when our planners supported this application. It's, yeah.
well, not only.
I think we just need to make a decision one way or the other and find out information later, whether it's considered minor or not, and getting an expert planner's opinion will tell us that.
If I may, my question wasn't whether or not our planner believed this file was a minor one or not. My question was how our planner interpret minor. But fair point, Councilor Allen.
And not only was Planner Pasha on there, Planner Payne was also on there giving the same 2 comments. So there was more than just one planner that was speaking to it as well.
It's an opinion thing.
Right, so, okay, I'll go, if there's no other comments to Ed, I'll go back to you, Councillor Alwood, because you said you wish to bring a motion forward.
Yeah, if you can make a motion that we appeal this decision.
So first you have to receive the minutes for information, and then furthermore.
Right. Well, there's no motion on the floor right now.
No, but the minutes are
We
there.
pulled them, okay.
Yep.
Right, I've got the wrong page open there.
So generally proceduralized, you will say that you received the minutes of the committee of adjustment, and furthermore, if that's your intent.
Okay. So I am going to make a motion that the council receives the 2025-02-11 Committee of Adjustment minutes for information. And that council appeals the decision on 5.2. 5.1, sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the appeal process is.
Is that enough clarity, Madam Clerk, or do you need more?
Through you, Mayor McQueen, I drafted something that might meet the needs of the mover, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Sure. Go ahead.
The council received the 2025-02-11 Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes for information, and that council directs staff to appeal the decision COA 2025-12 minor variance application A17.24, and that council directs staff to hire an outside land use planner to receive an opinion on the appeal.
Councillor Alwood?
I like the motion.
Okay,
I'll make that motion,
all right. Do I have a seconder then?
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wickens. Discussion on that motion. Is there any time frame on that, or like, so the appeal goes in, but then you're gonna have to wait to get an opinion back? That'll come back to a future council meeting, and I think it has to come back in camera, right?
I think through you, Mayor McQueen, I think the time sensitive issue has been pointed out that, we need to,
If you're gonna appeal it, you need to do it today, and then you come back with that, whether you can further.
there'll be
getting
more
that-
information presented to council, and as we move this thing forward, we can make the appropriate decisions.
Ed, you popped up, so just some clarity on that?
Yeah, just, I mean, the motion to initiate the appeal is done now. And then now once the appeal is initiated, then the discussion of it and the next time you discuss it can be in closed session.
But the motion is saying going out to get that second opinion, which probably will be you. Ed. All right, Councillor Lohead, I think it's been moved in second, and I think Councillor Lohead, you get a question.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. I was just going to speak sort of on why I support the motion, but at this point, I think it's unnecessary. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right. So going back to Councillor Allen, you pulled the Seniors Advisory Committee minutes, 17.5.
Yes, thank you, Mayor McQueen. And there is a motion, I think just one coming out of it, and it is 6.6. The motion as amended is that the Seniors Advisory Committee receive the Flesherton and Markdale accessible parking discussion for information, and that the Seniors Advisory Committee recommend that council direct staff to complete a review of the downtown areas of Markdale and Flesherton and report back to council with recommendations for the creation of additional disability parking spaces in these areas, and that the Seniors Advisory Committee recommend that council, on receipt of staff's recommendations, make the necessary provisions in the, and I think I could probably, can I change it in the budget to enable, or the 2026 budget, to enable the creation of the additional disability parking spaces in areas under municipal jurisdiction. And furthermore, that council advocate to the appropriate road authority for the creation of the additional disability parking spaces as necessary in locations outside of Grey Highlands jurisdiction, which means County Road 4 and Provincial Highway 10.
So you're moving that?
Yes, I will
Okay,
make that.
Councillor Dubik, you're seconding that? Okay. Discussion on the motion that's on the floor. Councillor Lohead.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. So this actually came up yesterday in our community safety discussion in regards to disability parking downtowns, and in particular through this winter and the amount of snow, and how, you know, there's only one spot in downtown Markdale, I believe, in one corner, and how much of a challenge that is for folks moving around. So just wanted to share that this has been noted from more than one committee, and in light of the amount of snow we get and challenges parking, I mean, that it creates additional challenges for folks with disabilities. And so I think this is a you know, a point well taken and a good motion that we need to make some decisions and make some moves on this.
And it probably isn't enough. And when you get snow covered parking lot, it's pretty hard to see where it is, right? So. Other comments, discussion? Councillor Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Just a kind of a question maybe to either yourself, Councillor Lohead, or to Councillor Allen, who were at both of these different committees that were discussing this. So we've heard lots of discussion and lots of comments being made about the challenges of parking in the downtown cores. And I'm wondering, so to have a disability parking, I guess we would need to do a cutout in the curb in order for allow, if you're trying to do fully accessible, so be like wheelchair or even scooter access, you'd have to do a cutout in the curb. If we're not doing a cutout in the curb, then every space on the street is accessible parking because they're parked right at the curb. But at the same time, they're now all available for all people parking. So it's a purpose that there's a space that's specifically etched out. I'm looking at it going, all the spaces across, like when you go downtown parking, which is what the motion is to review downtown areas of Markdale and Flesherton. All the spaces are of equal accessibility currently. There's other than maybe the corner one has a closer access to the bump, to the cutout in the curb at the crosswalk sections. If we were to say implement handicap parking only, sorry, that's not appropriate, the accessible parking only in that section, is there concerns we're going to then restrict the number of parking spots when we're hearing from businesses consistently that there's not enough parking? It feels like all the parking spots are equally accessible now, and I'm just wondering if this is actually ends up being a benefit by painting on the street. Do we end up maybe perhaps losing parking during portions when there isn't somebody who needs that parking space? Yeah, just what I'm wondering if that was like a discussion or part of the topic at either of the committees that discussed this item.
Well, probably with aging baby boomers, there's probably percentage wise, there's more people that need disability parking. And when there isn't any, what do? Do you keep driving around till it becomes available? Like there's There's a lot of probably challenges around, Councillor Allen.
Yeah, that's the issue. It's not that some of the places couldn't be used by somebody that needs accessible spot. It's that, is there a spot available? And if people, at a busy time downtown, if there's no spaces available, then that person is having difficulties. But I understand your point that if that space only gets used for 1 hour out of the day, then it's a spot that's lost to the rest of the business area.
There's gotta be an engineer can tell you that answer, Deputy Mayor.
And almost, just to that point too, though, I mean, so the premise is you make one spot and that one spot is used as the, yeah. I'm just trying to make sure in my head I rationalize. If we're to build a brand new parking lot on the property, within the property, making sure that there's accessible parking there, closer access to the shops and such, as I understand. When we're talking about the downtown parking, all parking spots that exist now are of equal accessibility. So that's the part where in my head I'm challenging. Is this, would this idea make a net benefit or would it be a net negative?
So I think these are all very good questions. And I think I would hope that, getting a staff report will help to answer these questions, taking a fresh look, fresh eyes in terms of just the downtown locations and seeing what could be done. So this is why I would support it.
Something in my mind says like electronic version that when the businesses are open, it's accessible parking, and then when the businesses are closed, it becomes regular parking. Something electronic. Councillor Alwood, just because of that flexibility.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you. I mean, we had the Strong Towns folks talk about parking in Markdale, and don't remember whether there's a report coming back on that presentation. But accessible parking usually requires that you have a sticker in your vehicle to park there, right? So if you allocate accessible parking, curbside parking, it restricts people without the sticker being there and it's only strong enough if it's being enforced by your bylaw officers, right? So
I understand they're between 2 and 4 in the morning, so they may not be at the right time, right? So I don't know.
It's again, I'm not, are we asking for another report on top of the Strong Towns initiative? I don't remember, quite frankly, whether or not there was a staff report requested. Maybe somebody else on council can help me, or our clerk.
I don't know. Was that a question to our clerk?
Yes, if the clerk could help me there. Was there something that came out of that discussion with the Strong Towns delegation?
Through you, Mayor McQueen, I'd have to look into it. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I was presented about 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago. I'm trying to think. Was there a report coming out of that? I'm trying to.
It's not on the agenda.
No. Sorry, Tom. You have to do your own research.
Well, I'm just trying to avoid staff duplicating work. We just heard how
They don't have time.
Councillor Allen, you're the mover of the motion.
Yeah, well, I'm sure staff, if this is duplication or overlap, that they will make one report, 2 requests into one report.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimous. Opposed? Okay, that's not carried unanimous.
Right.
I thought your pen was sort of held up, so that was carried.
Scared.
All right, so that takes care.
Sorry, Mayor McQueen, there is one more.
You're right.
Item 6.8, whereas many seniors in the municipality of Grey Highlands and other areas of Grey County are living alone in their homes with a need for companionship and a need for assistance in maintaining their homes. And whereas with the increased rates of inflation, some seniors need to supplement their finances to cover the increase in household expenses. And whereas locally, many young people experience difficulty in finding rental accommodations that they can afford, and rising rental rates can create a struggle to pay for food, hydro, and other basic needs. And whereas the Georgian Bay Home Share Program has created an innovative solution to these issues in the southern Georgian Bay area, and is assisting residents in securing affordable housing locally while also allowing seniors to age at home. Now, therefore, the Seniors Advisory Committee recommends that council advocate to the County of Grey for the development and facilitation of a similar housing solution to be available in all areas of Grey County. And my question at the meeting was, you know, why can't we just do this? But why do we need the county? But the county would actually screen people and make sure that the pairing of it is, you know, they're compatible, that somebody doesn't have a criminal record, you know, things like that. So I'll move that.
Should you add and that this be circulated to the County of Grey?
Well, that's, yeah, if we're gonna
Yes,
advocate.
but I'm not sure how that advocation is, either through council sending a resolution, the deputy mayor and I advocating, council, you know, banging on the door, a council meeting up there saying, we want this, like there's, it's sort of.
All of the above.
All right. Okay, so you're moving that? Councillor Dubig is seconding that? Councillor Lowhead?
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, and thank you, Councillor Allen. I think this is an interesting initiative. I think it's a creative solution, and it also makes me think about how there's been a request more than once to find physicians homes up here as they're temporarily at Markdale Hospital in particular. And I guess I just wanted to throw this out there maybe for your knowledge, and maybe we could work it into this motion, but it seems a pretty good way to partner up to find is two birds with one stone here. Makes it a pretty easy screening process as well when it's a young physician that's looking for a place to live, and what better roommate for an elderly person than a young physician. So just wanted to, I don't know if we can work that into this motion, or maybe it's just food for thought.
And it's the same with where you have a college or a university town of the same idea, right? Of sharing accommodations for that. There's a comment to that, but I will say, I know I was at a conference just before COVID. I'm trying to think what conference it was. Maybe it was AMO, where they had a conference. Maybe it was Roma, where they talked, there was a speaker talked about how sharing 4 or 5 seniors in a home and sharing the cost and all that. And it was well received. It must have been Roma, because I sort of picture the room, but it was well received. And about this, it was down eastern Ontario where they were doing this, and it was, everybody shared.
That's the comment.
Yeah, right. And it could be widows, or it could be, you know, single ladies, if it was all, you know, that type of thing, or it could be others. But anyway, it was collaborating and sharing the cost, saving money, and also the fellowship. Now, it has to be matched right, because, you know, everybody has to get along, and get along is, you know, being compatible too, right? So, but it was, I don't know if I could go back, right? It was just before COVID, and it was, I don't know if anybody else attended that session, but, you know, there's ways outside of working from affordability and from the social part of camaraderie as well, right? So it's certainly a good idea for sure. It's just who can do that matching is the bigger question as well, right? It takes somebody with probably psychology type background, maybe, I don't know. Councillor Elwood.
I think they made a television program, Golden Years, that was good.
Wow,
Good example of that. But in all seriousness, I mean, the screening aspect, senior abuse is an issue, right? So you would want to make sure that you're partnering up, you're achieving the goal without creating issues in that area. So
that probably helped. That happens for Alzheimer's as well too, right?
It needs to be, yep, absolutely.
So, all right, well, the motion's there. Advocate to the county. Now, Deputy Mayor, up for the fight.
I was about to say, just a quick comment. So actually tomorrow we have our community
You're in the social services.
yeah, the Community Services Committee meeting up at Grey County. And if I'm actually ready to hit send if this motion passes, to kind of bring this up with Director Emery Shaw, who's the Director of Community Services for Grey County, and also Josh, who I think his role is more along lines of housing and supportive housing ideas, just to get their opinion, but it's something I can, if this passes, then I can bring it up with staff tomorrow. So it'll be pretty efficient in my ability to go and at least get some opinions and bring some information back.
All right. Other comments on the motion? It's been moved in second. It's been read out, so all in favor? It's carried unanimous. Anything else for the minutes? I will say, sorry, Madam.
We received the minutes for information.
Just gonna say, moved by Councillor Allen. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wickens. I did want to just comment that previous minutes, a few meetings back, it was talked about from the seniors group about the delayed response on the lights for pedestrians. I did raise it with Pat Hoy. I got a follow-up. I am attending Good Road, so maybe I'll have an opportunity to have a real sit down with him. And he was like, oh, because I know we have one light, they have one light. But I think the question that came, or the request that came through the seniors was a 30-second delay to allow pedestrians before people can turn. Right. So I did put it in his ear. I need to follow up on that as well. So the minutes are there. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Very good. General announcements. Deputy Mayor, you usually go first. Well, I'll start. The Maxwell Community Park Committee had a spaghetti dinner there on Valentine's Day. We're into March now, on the 14th. Was there? Yes. Dan, I think you were cooking some stuff. I got there around the time for serving, and then you had to leave. But it was, I think they raised around $1,300 thereabouts. There's an article last week in the Advance. Shout out to Foodland and Bill Graham. He donated a lot of the food for Foodland, along with Maxwell Meats donated the hamburger with the spaghetti sauce, and I think maybe 120 people attended. So it's a kickoff for that fundraiser for the community park. I just said we need to do another 100 spaghetti dinners. Anyway, it's the kickoff, so they will be moving on. So it's a start of and I know Deputy Mayor, you attended that, and again, there was a little write-up in the Advance there, I think last week or a week or so ago. So Deputy Mayor, do you have
Put me on the spot. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have.
I just had I'll go here. I just had an agriculture advisory meeting before this meeting, and one of the items that's on there, a few things. The county is looking at tree cutting bylaw review. It's 20 years old, and also the issue around coyotes and beaver bounties. And so I suggested that we have an information night here at Gray Ag to have comments come back. And a lot to do with the tree cutting is if you're having a woodlot management plan and you're having it harvest. There was one time talked about a minimum size, but they're suggesting some other suggestions. And the other part of the bylaw is there is the option of applying for clear cutting. So anyway, it's being reworked. It's been in place for over 20 years. So they felt that it's time to go out to the public. And also the issues around bounties, around coyotes and beavers, which we've talked about at the county as well. And that's coming. And also on that, and I'm going to pass this over to the Deputy Mayor to maybe make some comments. The lands next to Grey Roots, the two ag societies around Sydenham and the Owen Sound Fairs have been looking at, well, they've had to leave Owen Sound Fairgrounds. So they've been looking for a site. And so the lands next to Grey Roots has been generously donated or will be donated to create an agricultural area for these two fairs to conduct and other events. And so this has been started about 2010. I know 2014 when I was on the Niagara Escarpment, it's in Niagara Escarpment lands. 2014, we had a working meeting at the Grey Roots, 2-day working meeting. I don't know if you ever got into that yet, Deputy Mayor, but and at that time, the commission was favorable. Staff were like, okay, but since then, probably all staff and all commission members are no longer there. So anyway, I understand it was at the commission meeting this past week ago, was it, or just the last meeting? and they're taking it back on that. And it's, you know, it's a reflection or an opportunity, and the meeting I was on this morning was the Grey County Ag Advisory, so this is where it was talking about it. Grey County has taken the lead for a few years, which is good because it's sort of associated to Grey Roots. So then with Grey Roots, you go to the museum, and then there, as time goes on, there will be events and things happening next to it that are agriculture related, these fairs, and there will be a cattle barn, and they have a whole, you know, sort of like a fairgrounds, sort of like that, that'll be there for many, many years to host a bigger fair and, you know, agricultural shows and stuff like that. So I don't know if you have a comment to that from the NEC's perspective, but it has to go through that planning process as well, development permit.
Sure, Mayor McQueen. So the Grey County file that did come to the NEC regarding what Mayor McQueen was discussing was presented. The current process would be that the application be approved in not even approved in principle, but allowed to move forward. So in other words, the commission itself does not immediately have any questions that suggest that the plan doesn't meet the NEC plan. So it is moving forward to go out to for circulation to all the different organizations and groups that may have comments or questions or concerns regarding this kind of development. Director Scott Taylor, who's the planning director for Grey County, as well as Hillary, and I'm forgetting her last name off the top of my head, who is a member of one of the ag societies, did come and give presentation to the Niagara Sharp Commission. Bredner? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Allen. Hillary Bredner did give presentation. No distractions at all during my comments, Mayor McQueen. It's all good. The presentation, the presentation was well received. The commission did support unanimously to move forward to the next phase and get some comments. When you look at the synergies between what was trying to be done in terms of agricultural education on the lands next to Grey Roots' goal of kind of historical education and kind of maintaining and describing and presenting the culture and history of the area. There's a lot of reasons why this makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it was interesting to see. If I quickly made the other thing that was brought up during the Niagara Escarpment Commission in February is something that I spoke to a little earlier, and that is that the Niagara Escarpment Commission is beginning discussions on the 10-year Niagara Escarpment Plan review. And so the commission itself, every month for the next number of months, we'll be having discussions on a particular topic within the plan itself. There are a few different items that have been kind of tallied and listed over the course of the last 10 years since the plan was last reviewed. Many of that time when Mayor McQueen was a part of the commission, and a lot of those items are going to be part of the discussion moving forward. Secondary housing units, ability for farm operations, ability for tree harvesting. There's a lot of different things that will be discussed along the Niagara Escarpment full length. So it'd be interesting to see and kind of an opportunity for myself to really dive into the plan itself and see what changes may or may not want to be made in the best interest of the Niagara Escarpment itself.
And yeah, and that plan was 2017, which doesn't seem, I don't know, because we worked at it for a couple of years before that.
And it's estimated,
and you'll be working on it again. Councillor Dupuy.
Thank you. Thank you. Through you to the Deputy Mayor, if I can maybe just ask a quick question. Is there a public forum process built into that?
Yeah. Absolutely. It was discussed during the Niagara Escarpment Commission meeting that there is definitely, there's a few opportunities throughout the course of the plan review for residents, for other organizations to make comments to changes or no changes that they would like to see. I don't have the timeline details as to when that may happen, but yes, there's definitely lots of opportunities. I'll make sure that once I have a bit better understanding of that timeline, I'll share with our council so we can kind of disseminate to different groups that may be of interest. Obviously, we know of a few different groups in the valley that would probably be very interested to see how the plan review process is going. But yeah, that's definitely a big part of it.
Follow up there, Councillor. I know one of the things that I found frustrating was they allowed secondary units on rural, but not on the secondary part of the there's I'm trying to think of the designation. There's protected, there's natural and protected. They wouldn't allow it on the protected, but a lot of sometimes on the protected part of the escarpment, there's farmland. It just looks like the same. Like the mapping is a little bit not perfect, to say the least, but they only allowed it on the rural, where we know we talk about housing and stuff like that. Secondary units is one of those parts.
A big part of it is, you know, I think I've heard, I haven't been on the Niagara Experiment Commission very long, but I would say, I wouldn't be exaggerating if I said dozens.
Point of order.
Not a Niagara Experiment Commission meeting here? Okay.
This is general announcements, not a discussion on the Niagara Escarpment.
Councillor Dubik asked a question. I think it is important, but anyway, I think you get the justification of that. Maybe somebody else has to go to the washroom. Maybe, or-
45.
Okay, so on that, so that well, I mean, I will say that I allowed the deputy mayor to speak because of the lands next to Grey Roots, which is something that's been worked on for a long time, and it's getting to that part of to be supported and that. I will say that at our the whole meeting last week, it has been approved to move forward with the new Feversham paramedic base, moving forward with to the municipality, a number of things with regards to acquisition of the lands. I guess there will have to be a severance and a few things there. It's laid out. There's quite a resolution there. Do you have a comment? Okay, you just had your hand up there. So that's sort of something that's it is an area, and I brought it up before. It is an underserviced area in Feversham, and that's something that will be a benefit to Grey Highlands for that fact. I don't know if there's any questions to that. Do you have something you wish to report on? Other comments? Any other general announcements? There's a few things coming up. Councillor Dubé.
Yeah, I'm just going through sort of my calendar. So March 18th is our next town hall at the Osprey Hall. So just a quick reminder that everybody throughout the municipality is invited to come on down, and we'll be starting at 7 p.m.
Okay. Any other general announcements? We do have a closed session, so I would say we need to stop and take a break for lunch, but Madam CEO.
Thank you, Member Queen. The closed session will be relatively quick, so if we could maybe take a 5-minute break and go straight into closed session and finish up the meeting, that's.
I would say 10 minutes, because time you get up and
Okay.
get down, it's 10 minutes.
I just
Okay.
thought we could keep going through and.
All right,
end the
so
meeting.
then why don't I do that then for the closed session that, okay. The council proceed into closed session, what have we got here, at 1:02. To discuss matters related to the following: recent staffing departure, section 239 2B, personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board or employees, and that the CAO Karen Govan and clerk Amanda Vines Van Elstein remain in attendance. Can I have a mover? Deputy Mayor, seconder, Councillor Dubik. Any discussion on that? All in favor? That's carried. All right. I think that should be 1:05 by the time we get things around. All right, welcome back, everybody, and back into open session. We rose from closed session at 1:45. And I needed to move in a seconder that the closed meeting was held and only the closed session items identified were discussed in closed session. Can I have a deputy mayor, Councillor Allen? Discussion, all in favor? That's carried. Confirming bylaw that that bylaw 2025-016 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on March 5th, 2025 be read first, second, and third time and finally passed. And that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to sign and seal the same notwithstanding any contrary provisions of council. I'm going to move her in a second. Councillor Allwood, deputy mayor. Discussion, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. We got those some meetings identified there that are upcoming with the Heritage Town Hall, as Councillor Dubik, and then council. I need one more motion. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Wickens, that we adjourn until the call of the chair at 1:46. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.